Chapter 1092. Chu Fengmian came to the imperial capital for the Bloody World. On the phone, however, Chu Fengmian didn't plan to go to the Bloody World directly. Although Chu Fengmian knew some things about the Bloody World in Lei Yan's memory, he still didn't dare to go there easily. That was because the Bloody World was too dangerous in Lei Yan's memory. Moreover, the danger was unintentional. When Lei Yan entered the Bloody World, she followed a few of her companions into the Bloody World. Those companions would suddenly explode and die. Without any warning, they would explode and die in the Bloody World. Their flesh and blood would become a part of the Bloody World. Lei Yan was lucky that he didn't encounter such a strange thing. That was why he could leave the Bloody World alive. However, if he was asked to go there again, he wouldn't go no matter how much he was paid. This made Chu Fengmian have to think about it. Moreover, Chu Fengmian came to the imperial capital for another purpose. He wanted to collect some information about the Sacred Dragon's secret domain. Han Yueli and Luo, she were both in the Sacred Dragon Mystery Realm. If Chu Fengmian wanted to find them, he would have to go to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Realm. He couldn't find any information about the Sacred Dragon's secret domain in the Desolate Domain. The imperial capital was the heart of the ancient Snake Country. Chu Fengmian planned to find a merchant association to collect information about the Sacred Dragon's secret domain. At the same time, Chu Fengmian wanted to see if there was a place where he could buy a large amount of bloodstones. Chu Fengmian's wealth was boundless. If he could buy a large amount of bloodstones, he wouldn't have to take the risk to enter the bloody secret domain. Thinking of this, Chu Fengmian suddenly pulled a Life Shatterer Realm man aside. The Life Shatterer Realm man was angry when Chu Fengmian pulled him aside. However, after seeing Chu Fengmian's Heavenly Fate Realm cultivation, the anger on his face quickly disappeared. Strength reigns supreme. No matter where it is universal. Senior, may I know what you're here for? The man asked carefully. At the same time, he secretly wondered if he had offended someone. After all, he was puzzled when he was pulled aside. Don't be nervous. I just want to ask which merchant association is the biggest one in the imperial capital. Where is it located? Chu Fengmian asked casually. He wanted to buy information on the Sacred Dragon life and a large number of bloodstones. These were not things that a small merchant association could have. He couldn't be bothered to ask them one by one, so he naturally found the biggest one. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the nervousness on the man's face quickly dissipated. Then he pointed ahead and said, "Up ahead is the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. It's the biggest merchant association in the Ancient Snake Nation. If you follow this path, you'll be able to buy anything from there. Here is a spirit stone. Consider it your reward." Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and a royal-grade spirit stone flew out and handed it to the man. Then, Chu Fengmian left with a flicker. Ancient Snake Merchant Association. It seems like even in the imperial capital, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association is the largest organization. Chu Fengmian still remembered that Wang Zhanliu had given him a violet snake card when he left the Ancient Snake Trading Company in Yu Mountain City. From the looks of it now, it was enough to make use of. I hope you won't disappoint me. Chu Fengmian walked along the street. At the end of the street was an ancient building made of metal. It looked like it had been there for countless years. Even though it was made of metal, one could still see some ancient traces on it. Two ancient snakes made of metal were clinging to each other. The appearance of this building was similar to the Ancient Snake Trading Company's building that Chu Fengmian had seen in Yu Mountain City. However, compared to the Ancient Snake Trading Company in Yu Mountain City, this building was much more imposing. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. This is the headquarters of the Ancient Snake Trading Company. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw countless martial artists walking back and forth. There were at least hundreds of thousands of martial artists walking around the Ancient Snake Trading Company to do business. People like old ancestor Wu of the Immortal Realm were not rare. Of course, there were no quasi-emperors. Quasi-emperors were absolute experts in the entire ancient monster continent. Even in the headquarters of the Ancient Snake Trading Company, they were also VIPs and wouldn't mingle with ordinary martial artists. Senior, welcome to the Ancient Snake Trading Company. Our Ancient Snake Trading Company has spiritual herbs and spiritual weapons. May I know what you're looking for? As Chu Fengyan stepped into the building, a white-clothed lady walked over and asked. This white-clothed lady was in the life and death realm. Even in the ancient snake country, she wasn't considered weak. However, in the headquarters of the ancient snake trading company, she was merely a receptionist. Most of the martial artists who came here to do business were either rich or respectable. Even old ancestor Wu and quasi-emperors would come. Therefore, the receptionist's strength couldn't be too weak. Chu Fengyan didn't answer. Instead, he took out a purple token and handed it over to the white-clothed lady. So you're a purple VIP. After receiving the token, the white-clothed lady said respectfully, "Please follow me, Your Excellency." The white-clothed lady led Chu Fengyan out of the hall on the first floor and arrived at the 7th floor of the ancient snake trading company. At a glance, the 5th floor had tens of thousands of private rooms. Many of the private rooms were closed. It was obvious that people were discussing business inside. The white-clothed lady brought Chu Fengyan to an empty private room and quickly left. I didn't expect that with my status. I can only reach the 5th floor of the ancient snake trading company in the imperial capital. The rules of the ancient snake trading company were the same everywhere. There were a total of 7 floors, and they were divided according to one's status and strength. When Chu Fengyan was in Yushan City, he was brought to the 7th floor. Moreover, the purple snake card was the highest status that the ancient snake trading company could offer at that time. In the ancient snake trading company of the imperial capital, such a status could only allow him to reach the 5th floor. However, Chu Fengyan glanced over and saw that most of the people who were doing business on the 5th floor were at least emperors. However, there was no old ancestor Wu who was in the immortal realm. It seemed like old ancestor Wu was at a higher level. Chu Fengyan sat in the private room. Just as he took a sip of tea, an old man walked in. "May I know what you're looking for?" The old man took a glance at Chu Fengyan and went straight to the point. An emperor might be a figure in the outside world, but for the people of the ancient snake trading company, they dealt with a group of emperors every day. They even dealt with old ancestor Wu. Chapter 1093. I wonder if I can buy information from the ancient snake chamber of commerce. Chu Fengyan was too lazy to talk nonsense and asked directly, "Information? You're underestimating our ancient snake chamber of commerce. We have all the information in the world. As long as you can afford it, we can buy any information." The old man said with a smile and was very confident. The ancient snake chamber of commerce had always been known to have everything. As long as one had enough wealth, almost everything could be done. The old man then spoke again. "What kind of information do you need?" "The sacred dragon secret realm," Chu Fengyan said calmly. "And the bloody world. I need information about these 2 places." The sacred dragon's secret realm, the bloody world. The old man's face was a little strange. Many martial artists came to the ancient snake chamber of commerce to buy information, but most of them were to deal with their enemies and so on. As for those 2 places, it was rare to see them. "What kind of information do you need?" The old man's eyes turned, and he thought for a moment before speaking again. "The price of information about these 2 places is very high. You should be prepared." These 2 places were considered sacred and dangerous places in the ancient monster continent. The price of information about them was astronomical. The old man looked at Chu Fengyan. He didn't seem to be from a big family. The price of these 2 pieces of information was not something an ordinary emperor could afford. All of it, all of it. I want all of it." Hearing the old man's answer, Chu Fengyan was also happy. He was originally a little worried about whether he could buy information about these 2 places in the ancient snake chamber of commerce. Now it seemed that the ancient snake chamber of commerce had everything, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. Anyway, in terms of wealth, Chu Fengyan had enough for him to squander at will. All of it. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, the old man was stunned and looked at Chu Fengyan suspiciously. Just buying a piece of information about these 2 places was enough to make an ordinary ruler go bankrupt. All of it. Even a supreme ancestor couldn't afford it. That's right, all of it. Chu Fengyan also saw the old man's suspicion. He sneered and waved his hand. A spatial rift suddenly opened in front of him. There was a mountain of spirit stones in the spatial rift, and every single one of them was a royal grade spirit stone. The entire spatial rift was filled to the brim with royal-grade spirit stones. It was hard to tell just how much wealth there was in the spatial rift. The old man's expression changed immediately. Even he had never seen so much wealth at once. No, it should be said that the wealth he had seen in his life was not as much as what Chu Fengmian had shown. He had originally thought that Chu Fengmian had come to deliberately pass the time, but now it seemed that the wealth he had shown was enough to prove that Chu Fengmian's words were not false. "Young master, please wait a moment. I can't make the decision on this matter. I need to ask for instructions." The old man's expression changed as he said respectfully, "To be able to take out such a large amount of wealth in one go, even the people of the 8 great imperial families might not necessarily be able to do so. No matter what Chu Fengmian's identity was, it was enough to prove that he was not an ordinary ruler. With this wealth, it was enough to hire killers to kill several supreme patriarchs. Go!" Chu Fengmian waved his hand. He also knew that the information of these 2 places was not something that a small figure like him could make the decision. The bloody world was fine. After all, it was only a dangerous place. However, the Holy Dragon's secret realm was the sacred land of the entire ancient monster continent. Any piece of information there was of vital importance. After the old man left, he seemed to have gone to find an important figure of the ancient snake chamber of commerce. After chatting for a while, he quickly rushed back. "Young master, please go downstairs." Chu Fengmian followed the old man all the way to the 7th floor of the ancient snake chamber of commerce. There were only 10 private rooms on the 7th floor. The servants standing next to the 7th floor were even some great ancestors who had stepped onto the life and death steps. There were even many who were only a step away from stepping into the destiny realm and becoming rulers. When they saw Chu Fengmian walking over, a trace of surprise flashed across many people's eyes. It was rare for a ruler to be able to come to the 7th floor. Many people were secretly guessing which family's young master Chu Fengmian was from to receive such treatment. Chu Fengmian saw the gazes of those people, but he did not care. He continued until he entered a private room. The furnishings of this private room were much more noble than those on the 5th floor. The seats were all made of 10,000-year-old agarwood. Sitting on them was enough to calm one's mind and expel one's inner demons. Many sects would place a 10,000-year-old agarwood in a secret chamber and use it as a seat for cultivation. However, in the ancient snake chamber of commerce, it was only used as a chair. The tea inside, as well as the flowers and plants placed inside, were all precious items. There were things that many rulers dreamed of. "It seems that the information I want to buy is too valuable." He brought me directly to the 7th floor. Chu Fengmian looked at everything around him and thought to himself. When he passed by the 6th floor, he saw that most of the people on the 6th floor were great ancestors Wu. It seemed that even great ancestors Wu, who were in the eternal realm, could only be on the 6th floor. On the 7th floor, the strength of the eternal realm alone was not enough. One needed more identities. However, although the amount of information Chu Fengmian wanted to buy was large enough, it could be done on the 6th floor. However, the old man was shocked by the wealth Chu Fengmian took out in one breath and hurriedly reported it. In the end, Chu Fengmian was arranged to be on the 7th floor. Being able to take out so much wealth in one breath. Even if Chu Fengmian was just an ordinary person, he would still be treated with respect by the ancient snake chamber of commerce. After Chu Fengmian sat for a while, a young man slowly walked in. This young man had a dignified appearance and had a noble temperament. Chu Fengmian felt that this person had reached the peak of the eternal realm. He was the kind of person who could break through and step into the emperor realm and become a quasi-emperor as long as he had the opportunity. However, he might not be able to find such an opportunity in his life. However, this kind of strength was almost invincible in the eternal realm. He was invincible under the quasi-emperor realm. This was obviously a big shot of the ancient snake chamber of commerce. When he came in and saw Chu Fengmian, he smiled and said, "May I know how to address you? I'm the vice president of the ancient snake chamber of commerce, Mahogany." Vice President. Chapter 1094. Chu Fengmian knew that there were only 3 vice presidents in the headquarters of the ancient snake chamber of commerce. These three vice leaders were only second to the president and were extremely influential. Normally, when the president of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild was not present, they were the highest authorities of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. Although this was only a superficial statement, there must be other experts behind the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. However, even in the imperial capital, Vice President Mahogany was a big shot. Even the 8 royal families had to treat him with respect. He was the one who received Chu Fengyan. This was beyond Chu Fengyan's expectation. However, it was good that the vice president came. Chu Fengyan needed to buy bloodstones in addition to information. It would save him the trouble of changing people. My name is Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan replied calmly. The vice president's identity was shocking. However, it was not worth Chu Fengyan's attention. Even if the president of the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce came in person, Chu Fengyan would still do the same. Oh, Mahogany was surprised to see Chu Fengyan being neither servile nor overbearing. He had heard the old man say that Chu Fengyan had great wealth. He happened to be free, so he came to receive Chu Fengyan. Logically speaking, there was no need for him to come in person. Given his status, he would only appear if a quasi-emperor personally came. However, Chu Fengyan's neither servile nor overbearing attitude surprised him. Even the younger generation of the 8 royal families had to be respectful to him. However, Chu Fengyan was unmoved. However, with Mahogany's experience, he would not show his surprise. He then went straight to the point. I already know what young Master Chu wants to buy. There are a total of 107 pieces of information about the secret realm of blood. Each piece is worth 1 million top-grade spirit stones. If young Master Chu is satisfied with this price, I will deliver the goods immediately. 100 million top-grade spirit stones was not a small number. Previously, Chu Fengyan had bought countless sacred medicines from Yushan City and only spent a little more than 200 million. 100 million top-grade spirit stones was enough to make some sovereigns or even great ancestors who were less wealthy go bankrupt. To Chu Fengyan, it was just a number. His wealth was billions and trillions, so it was nothing. Here are the spirit stones. Chu Fengyan didn't waste any time. He waved his hand in the air and opened a spatial rift. 100 million top-grade spirit stones worth of wealth flew out. Mahogany did an inventory and took all the wealth away. Then, a jade talisman appeared in his hand. He directly handed it to Chu Fengyan. What is recorded here is all the information our Ancient Snake Merchant Association has about the world of fresh blood. Yes. Chu Fengyan took the jade talisman and glanced at it. The information recorded inside was extremely detailed. It seemed that Chu Fengyan didn't spend his price in vain. After looking through it briefly, Chu Fengyan put the jade talisman away. There was too much content inside. Chu Fengyan would find some time to slowly look through it. Right now, he had other things to do. What about the information regarding the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane? Chu Fengyan suddenly asked. Chu Fengyan had already obtained information about the Bloody World. However, he was more concerned about the information about the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. Han Yueli and Luo, she were both in the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. Chu Fengyan was definitely going to look for them. However, Chu Fengyan only knew the name of the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. Where was the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane? Chu Fengyan had no idea how to enter it. The Ancient Snake Merchant Association was Chu Fengyan's greatest hope. If the Ancient Snake Merchant Association didn't have any information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane, it would be troublesome for Chu Fengyan. After all, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was spread throughout the entire Ancient Snake Country. If Chu Fengyan couldn't gather any information, it would be no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. Our Ancient Snake Merchant Association has information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. However, there are only 2 pieces of information. Mahogany pondered for a moment and said, "To be honest with you, young Master Chu, the 2 pieces of information that our Ancient Snake Merchant Association has doesn't have much to do with the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. They only record the method to enter the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. If young Master Chu wants to enter the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane, you can purchase them. However, If you want to purchase information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane, it's not only our Ancient Snake Merchant Association that doesn't have them, the other merchant associations also don't have them. Furthermore, the price of each piece of information is 10 billion top-grade spirit stones. Mahogany waited for Chu Fengyan's reply. Not to mention the value of the 2 pieces of information, the price of each piece of information was 10 billion. Even a progenitor would not be able to afford it. Only the disciples of great clans and the successors of great merchant associations would be willing to spend a fortune to purchase the information. However, even those people would not spend such a huge amount of wealth just to purchase 2 pieces of information. Although the Ancient Snake Merchant Association's items were expensive, they would never lie. Chu Fengyan had to think carefully after hearing Mahogany's words. Only 2 pieces of information, and there's no information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. Chu Fengyan frowned and fell into deep thought after hearing Mahogany's words. Chu Fengyan did not care about the price of 10 billion. After all, he could afford it even if it was 100 billion. What made Chu Fengyan ponder was that even the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was unable to purchase any information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. There's almost no place in the imperial capital or even the entire ancient Fey continent where one could purchase information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. It seemed like the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane was much more mysterious than Chu Fengyan had imagined. Based on Mahogany's words, it might not be that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association did not have the information, but that they did not dare to sell it. Even if Chu Fengyan offered a high price, they would not sell it. Although money was a good thing, they would not necessarily be willing to exchange their lives for money. No matter how much wealth they had, they would still need to be alive to spend it. Also, if young Master Chu wants to enter the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane, you should give up on the idea. The difficulty of entering the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane is harder than ascending to the heavens. Mahogany said after seeing Chu Fengyan's troubled expression. The Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane was a place that everyone in the ancient Fey continent yearned for. However, Mahogany knew that entering that place was harder than ascending to the heavens. Although Chu Fengyan was wealthy and had a prominent status, Mahogany did not think that he stood a chance. I'll buy these 2 pieces of information. After thinking for a while, Chu Fengyan suddenly waved his hand. The spatial crack opened again, and a long river of spiritual stones flew out. A total of 20 billion royal-grade spirit stones flew out of his hand. Although the 2 pieces of information did not contain any information regarding the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane, there was a way to enter the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane. It would be extremely useful to Chu Fengyan. Chapter 1095. What? Are you sure you want to buy it? Mahogany was shocked after hearing Chu Fengyan's words. With his status, a mere 20 billion top-grade spiritual stones was not enough to shock him. He had seen many people with such wealth, but it was his first time encountering someone who was willing to spend so much to buy 2 pieces of information. The 2 pieces of information had been in the Ancient Snake Merchant Association for a long time. Many geniuses who were interested in the Sacred Dragon mystical ground came to inquire about it. However, they all backed off after hearing the price, including the disciples of the 8 royal families. After all, even if they spent 10 billion spiritual stones, they would only get some information about the Sacred Dragon mystical ground. If 10 billion spiritual stones were enough to buy the right to enter the Sacred Dragon mystical ground, countless cultivators and clans would be willing to pay such a price. However, it was only a piece of information. It was Hong Mi's first time seeing it, and someone was planning to buy it. Of course, Chu Fengyan did not waste any time. 20 billion spiritual stones for the 2 pieces of information would be useful to him. Chu Fengyan knew nothing about the Sacred Dragon mystical ground now. Even a little bit of information would be beneficial to him, not to mention that he was extremely wealthy. 20 billion spiritual stones would not be a problem for him. Chu Fengyan waved his hand in the air, and 20 billion top-grade spiritual stones worth of royal-grade spiritual stones flew out. Countless spiritual stones poured out like a river. The spiritual stones river was enough to drive countless old ancestors of the immortal realm crazy. Even those old ancestors of the immortal realm couldn't take out so much wealth at once. Even Mahogany was stunned by Chu Fengmian's wealth. However, he was someone who had seen a lot of things. After a short moment of shock, Redwood quickly recovered. He counted the spirit stones and then kept them all. Then, a jade talisman flew out from his palm and landed in front of Chu Fengmian. The jade talisman recorded the information about the sacred dragon mystical ground. Chu Fengmian took a quick glance and kept the jade talisman. Chu Fengmian would find an opportunity to read the contents of the jade talisman carefully. After all, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association would not sell him a fake piece of information. Besides, if the Ancient Snake Merchant Association dared to sell Chu Fengmian fake information, Chu Fengmian would make them pay the price. Chu Fengmian would make anyone who dared to deceive him pay the price. May I know what kind of deal Mr. Chu is planning to make with our Ancient Snake Merchant Association? In terms of information, if Mr. Chu doesn't need it, the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild still has a new batch of sacred herbs, Tian rank pills, and mystical weapons. Mr. Chu, feel free to let me know what you need. Rosewood looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed loudly. Completing this business deal would also be of great benefit to him. A business deal worth more than 20 billion was not something that the Ancient Serpent Chamber of Commerce could often complete. Furthermore, Mahogany could tell that Chu Fengmian's wealth was not as simple as it appeared. It was simply unfathomable. Although Mahogany didn't know where Chu Fengmian had obtained such great wealth, as long as Chu Fengmian did business with the Ancient Snake Merchant Association, it would be beneficial to him. Sacred herbs. I don't need sacred herbs, but I would like to buy something else. In order to obtain this information, I need a bigger deal. I wonder if Vice President Mahogany is willing to do it? Chu Fengmian looked at Mahogany and said slowly, "In order to obtain this information, you need a bigger deal?" Mahogany exclaimed when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. "Of course. I wonder what Mr. Chu needs. A business deal worth more than 20 billion. Could it be that Mr. Chu is planning to assassinate old Ancestor Wu? Only assassinating old Ancestor Wu would require such a huge price? Or is it that you need to destroy a sect?" Mahogany could not help but guess. Even old Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm, could not take out 20 billion supreme-grade spiritual stones. Such a price was enough to hire assassins to destroy countless sects like the Brilliant Sky sect. It was even enough to hire assassins to kill old Ancestor Wu. Assassin was an occupation that had been passed down since the ancient times. Although it had never appeared in public, it had been passed down through generations. The Ancient Snake Merchant Association actually had a close relationship with the Assassin Alliance. Otherwise, where would such a huge amount of information come from? It was impossible for the Ancient Snake Merchant Association to gather information on their own. Oh, killing old Ancestor Wu, who is in the immortal realm, is not worth my money. What if I want to kill a quasi-emperor? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he suddenly said. Old Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm, was like an ant to Chu Fengmian. It could be said that Chu Fengmian did not put in his eyes. Chu Fengmian's real opponent was a quasi-emperor. If he could use his wealth to kill a quasi-emperor, Chu Fengmian would not mind doing so. At the very least, Chu Fengmian had to kill the Alliance Master of the Wasteland Alliance to eliminate future troubles. Chu Fengmian had killed his son. The Alliance Master of the Wasteland Alliance would definitely hunt Chu Fengmian down at all costs. Killing him would be enough to solve a problem for Chu Fengmian. Kill a quasi-emperor? Mr. Chu, you must be joking. Even our Ancient Snake Merchant Association would not easily make an enemy out of a quasi-emperor, let alone kill one. Mahogany said with a smile when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. However, he sized Chu Fengmian up. Seeing that Chu Fengmian did not look like he was joking, he could not help but be shocked. Could it be that Chu Fengmian had really offended a quasi-emperor? Even in the ancient Snake Nation, if a quasi-emperor was willing to submit, he would be a high-ranking official. The 8 great sovereign families would not necessarily take the initiative to offend a quasi-emperor. Furthermore, if an ordinary sovereign had really offended a quasi-emperor, how could they come to the Ancient Snake Merchant Association? They would have been killed long ago. In front of a quasi-emperor, a heavenly mandate realm sovereign was no different from an ant. A quasi-emperor could casually pinch them to death. Mahogany thought for a moment and said again, "Our ancient snake merchant association will not accept the task of killing a quasi-emperor. However, if Mr. Chu has a grudge with a quasi-emperor, our ancient snake merchant association can resolve the grudge between you and that quasi-emperor." What? This time, it was Chu Fengmian's turn to be shocked. Chapter 1096. A quasi-emperor, no matter how weak a quasi-emperor was, had already stepped into the emperor realm. Anyone below the emperor realm would look down on them. Even the current 8 great imperial clans would not take the initiative to provoke a quasi-emperor, even if it was the weakest quasi-emperor. After all, if a quasi-emperor was determined to take revenge on any of the 8 great imperial clans regardless of life and death, he could easily massacre the younger generation of that clan. At that time, even if that quasi-emperor was killed, that clan would be completely wiped out. Therefore, there had always been an agreement in the ancient monster continent that one should not easily offend a quasi-emperor. The status of a quasi-emperor had always been extremely high in the ancient monster continent. Logically speaking, even a force like the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce might not necessarily be able to influence a quasi-emperor. However, from Mu Mu's words, the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce was actually able to help Chu Fengmian resolve the grudge of a quasi-emperor. To be able to do all this, it also meant that the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce had the power to make a quasi-emperor retreat. Is this true? Chu Fengmian asked in disbelief. Of course. Mumu nodded with a proud look on his face. Young Master Chu, don't worry. The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce has an excellent relationship with most of the quasi-emperors in the ancient Snake Country. As long as young Master Chu is willing to pay the price of 50 billion top-grade spirit stones, the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce will resolve any grudge of a quasi-emperor for you. 50 billion top-grade spirit stones in exchange for the protection of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fengmian also understood the meaning of Mu Mu's words. In other words, if Chu Fengmian handed over 50 billion top-grade spirit stones, the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce would protect Chu Fengmian's safety. If the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce stepped in, even a quasi-emperor would not dare to make a move in front of them. It seems that the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce has hidden deeper than I thought. If a quasi-emperor does not dare to make a move, could it be that there is a true emperor in the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce? Chu Fengmian thought to himself. There is only one possibility that a quasi-emperor would not dare to make a move, and that was a true emperor. Only a true emperor could make a quasi-emperor retreat. However, Chu Fengmian did not need protection. Chu Fengmian could protect himself from a quasi-emperor by himself. Moreover, if they really wanted the Ancient Snake Merchant Association to protect Chu Fengmian, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association would definitely investigate Chu Fengmian's identity. At that time, it would be even more troublesome. I was just saying, I don't have the guts to offend a quasi-emperor. Chu Fengmian smiled casually. Mahogany smiled along with Chu Fengmian and didn't say anything else. He could tell that Chu Fengmian wasn't asking casually, but it seemed that the price wasn't enough to satisfy Chu Fengmian. Then what does young Master Chu need? I think young Master Chu's realm seems to be about to break through. Redwood looked at Chu Fengmian and said casually. Others might be able to tell, but with his strength at the peak of the immortal realm, he could tell that Chu Fengmian had reached the peak of the heavenly mandate realm. He was just a step away from making a breakthrough. Our Ancient Serpent Merchant Association has a batch of high-quality dragon serpent fruits and some pills that can help you achieve a breakthrough. If Mr. Chu needs them, we'll give you a 20% discount. After all, he was a businessman. Naturally, he wanted to do as much business as possible. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had so much wealth. Building a good relationship with Chu Fengmian was definitely a good choice. I don't need dragon serpent fruits or heavenly spiritual pills. What I need is something else. Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change. I need bloodstones. A large amount of bloodstones, at least 10,000 of them. What? Bloodstones? 10,000 bloodstones? When Redwood heard Chu Fengmian's words, he couldn't help but jump in fright. At this time, he suddenly understood what Chu Fengmian meant by big business. A single bloodstone was worth at least 10 million supreme grade spiritual stones. Wouldn't 10,000 be 100 billion supreme grade spiritual stones? Even with his status in the Ancient Serpent Merchant Association, he couldn't take out 10 million supreme grade spiritual stones at once. Moreover, bloodstones weren't ordinary items. Young Master Chu, bloodstones are forbidden items. The Ancient Serpent Country has a rule that forbids the sale of bloodstones. The man with the rosewood face said with a troubled expression, "Although bloodstones are good, young Master Chu needs to make a breakthrough. There are other ways. Our Ancient Serpent Merchant Association has sacred elixirs and even a few saint-grade spiritual pills that are sufficient for a breakthrough. Young Master Chu, you can consider it." "No, I only need bloodstones." Chu Fengyan rejected. Chu Fengyan knew what forbidden items Redwood was talking about. There was a rule in the Ancient Serpent Country that forbade the trading of bloodstones between martial artists. Of course, the merchant associations were no exception. Therefore, the major merchant associations wouldn't sell bloodstones openly. However, rules were rules, and there would always be people who would break them. At least in Lei Yan's memory, he had once bought bloodstones from the Ancient Serpent Merchant Association. Therefore, Chu Fengyan came to the Ancient Serpent Merchant Association. "Vice President Redwood, you don't have to waste your breath on me. I once asked a friend to buy bloodstones from the Ancient Serpent Merchant Association. You'd better lie to other kids. I need bloodstones, a large amount of bloodstones. The price is not a problem. 10 million for one, 20 million for one, 30 million for one. As long as you have a large amount of bloodstones, I'll buy them all. You should know how rich I am." Chu Fengyan said coldly, like a nouveau riche. However, even a nouveau riche couldn't be like Chu Fengyan, who didn't treat spiritual stones as money. As long as he could buy a large amount of bloodstones, Chu Fengyan would be willing to pay several times the price. The benefits of bloodstones were something that couldn't be bought with wealth. Redwood was stunned after hearing Chu Fengyan's words. It took him a while to regain his senses, especially when Chu Fengyan said 20 million or 30 million per pill. Mahogany almost agreed to it. After all, the price of bloodstones for the Ancient Serpent Merchant Association was far less than 10 million. A sky-high price of 10 million was already a high profit, let alone double or triple the price. However, when he thought of the importance of bloodstones, Redwood calmed down. This matter wasn't something that he could handle. "Young Master Chu, our Ancient Serpent Merchant Association can sell you bloodstones. However, we don't have a lot of bloodstones. I'll have to go to the warehouse to check and give you an answer." Mahogany agreed first, then his figure disappeared. Chapter 1097. From the outside, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association only had 7 floors. When Chu Fengyan arrived at the Ancient Snake Merchant Association, he realized that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association still had an 8th floor. However, the 8th floor was concealed by some sort of restriction, which was why it couldn't be seen from outside. Even Chu Fengyan did not notice the existence of the 8th floor when he entered the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. It was obvious that the 8th floor of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was set up by a quasi-emperor expert. Chu Fengyan only noticed that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association had such a hidden floor when he discovered Redwood's whereabouts. The Ancient Snake Merchant Association was much more mysterious than it looked from the outside. Chu Fengyan's spiritual consciousness was already close to the 8th floor when he slowly withdrew it. He sensed that if Chu Fengyan's spiritual consciousness entered the 8th floor rashly, he might be discovered by the experts of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Chu Fengyan did not want to alert the enemy, so he withdrew his spiritual consciousness. It seemed like there was at least a quasi-emperor expert guarding the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Redwood walked for a while and soon returned. The contemplative look on his face had disappeared. It seemed like he had made a decision. "How is it?" Chu Fengyan sat on the chair as he watched Redwood enter. He was not nervous at all. Even if the Ancient Snake Merchant Association did not sell the bloodstones to Chu Fengyan, he could go to other merchant associations. The other merchant associations also sold bloodstones, but the Ancient Snake Merchant Association had the most bloodstones. If the Ancient Snake Merchant Association did not sell them, Chu Fengyan would just have to go to a few more merchant associations. It would not affect him too much. Young Master Chu, our ancient snake trading company is willing to be friends with you because of your boundless wealth. We can sell you the bloodstones. However, if you want a large amount of bloodstones, our ancient snake trading company can't afford it. After all, our ancient snake trading company doesn't have many bloodstones. Redwood looked at Chu Fengyan and said, "As for the price, it's fine according to 10 million per stone. Take it as a friendship. How many bloodstones do you have?" Chu Fengyan frowned when he heard Redwood's words. The number of bloodstones he needed to break through to the heavenly realm was definitely a sky-high number. He would need at least 100,000 bloodstones. In fact, Chu Fengyan even needed 200,000 bloodstones to be safe. From the sound of it, it seemed like there weren't many bloodstones. 30,000 bloodstones. Our ancient snake merchant association can only sell you 30,000 bloodstones. Rosewood replied, 30,000 pieces. This number was even less than what Chu Fengyan had guessed. Chu Fengyan needed at least 100,000 bloodstones to break through. 30,000 bloodstones might not be a drop in the bucket, but it was still not enough. Not enough. Chu Fengyan shook his head. 30,000 bloodstones were enough for other warriors, but for Chu Fengyan, it was still too little. It was far from enough to help Chu Fengyan break through. Although Chu Fengyan might be able to replenish his spiritual power with some sacred medicines, it would be impossible for him to advance his bloodline if that were the case. The advancement of one's bloodline was far more important than the advancement of one's cultivation base. Chu Fengyan was invincible among those of the same realm and could even fight those of a higher realm. He relied on the strength of his bloodline and the countless encounters he had. However, the stronger one was the less advantage Chu Feng would have, especially once he reached the Emperor realm. Which one of those who could step into the Emperor realm wasn't a genius? It wasn't because of countless encounters that one could step into the Emperor realm. Only the most dazzling geniuses of an era had the possibility of stepping into the Emperor realm. Facing those people, Chu Fengyan's advantage wasn't so obvious. That was why Chu Fengyan didn't want to clash with a quasi-emperor now. The advancement of his bloodline couldn't be delayed. As long as Chu Fengyan could advance his bloodline, he would have an advantage against other emperors even when he stepped into the Emperor realm. Rosewood didn't expect to be rejected by Chu Fengyan. 30,000 bloodstones was the amount some big families would purchase. One had to know that those big families bought bloodstones for their countless disciples to advance their bloodlines. As for the breakthrough to the Heaven's Mandate realm, hundreds or thousands of bloodstones were enough. Young Master Chu, 30,000 bloodstones are enough for you to break through. It won't be a problem for you to step into the immortal realm. Rosewood reminded. He suspected that Chu Fengyan didn't know the function of these bloodstones, so he wanted to buy them in bulk. The power of these bloodstones will be useless once you step into the immortal realm. It won't be useful in the future, even if you buy them in bulk. Hearing Rosewood's words, Chu Fengyan couldn't help but smile bitterly. He also knew that the bloodstones would be useless once he stepped into the immortal realm. But with just 30,000 bloodstones, Chu Fengyan couldn't even break through to the heaven realm. Compared to others, the resources Chu Fengyan needed to break through to the heaven realm were indeed thousands of times more than ordinary people. This number would also become more and more exaggerated as Chu Fengyan's economy grew. Fortunately, Chu Fengyan had a divine vein, so he could condense spirit stones anytime and anywhere. That was why he had a lot of wealth to support him in purchasing resources. But at his current realm, even if he had a lot of wealth, it might not be enough to buy the resources Chu Fengyan needed. Just like these bloodstones. The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce should have more than 30,000 bloodstones. If your ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce can provide 100,000 bloodstones, I am willing to buy them at the price of 50 million top-grade spirit stones each. Chu Fengyan slowly opened his mouth. He didn't care about anything else. As long as he had 100,000 bloodstones, Chu Fengyan would have a chance to break through. Although it was a total of 5 trillion bloodstones, Chu Fengyan's wealth would be depleted. But as long as Chu Fengyan could break through to the heaven realm, he would be able to condense the same amount of wealth again in a few days. This, Rosewood's face was a little troubled. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. Their ancient snake chamber of commerce actually couldn't take out anything, especially when he heard Chu Fengyin's offer of 50 million each bloodstone. It was like a clap of thunder had exploded in his heart. That was 5 trillion worth of wealth. Although the ancient snake chamber of commerce's assets were more than that, it was almost impossible to take out 5 trillion top-grade spirit stones in one go. Chapter 1098. All right, 50,000, 50 million each. I'll take all of them, Chu Fengyan said without hesitation. He could tell that Mahogany was telling the truth. Even the ancient snake merchant guild couldn't take out more bloodstones. All right, 50,000 bloodstones. Our ancient snake merchant guild needs to prepare them. I've already asked someone to bring them over. Mahogany breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Chu Fengyan's agreement. At least this big deal was settled. It would be his greatest loss if Chu Fengyan left in a fit of anger. 50,000 bloodstones was almost all the bloodstones the ancient snake merchant guild had. The people of the ancient snake merchant guild also needed to go to other places to make arrangements. Chu Fengyan sat on the chair and wasn't in a hurry. He was still thinking about where he could get more bloodstones. 50,000 bloodstones were far from enough. He needed at least 100,000 or even 200,000 bloodstones for Chu Fengyan to break through to the Ascension Realm. Which of the other merchant guilds have a large amount of bloodstones? Chu Fengyan suddenly asked Mahogany beside him. With Mahogany's status, he should have a good understanding of the other merchant guilds. Although the other merchant guilds weren't as good as the ancient snake merchant guild, they should have some bloodstones too. The other merchant guilds do have some bloodstones, but not a lot. A few hundred to 1,000 is the limit. The other merchant guilds in the imperial capital only have about 10,000 bloodstones. If young Master Chu needs them, our ancient snake merchant guild can buy them on your behalf. Mahogany replied. Only 10,000 bloodstones. Chu Fengyan frowned. He didn't expect that no matter how rich he was, he couldn't buy enough bloodstones. This was a troublesome matter. However, the bloodstones were indeed precious. Take Lei Yin, for example. He had risked his life in the bloody world and only managed to obtain a few hundred bloodstones. Every bloodstone was exchanged with fresh blood. Even the imperial capital couldn't have a large amount of bloodstones. Lei Yin was already considered lucky. Those who could survive in the bloody world might not be able to get a large amount of bloodstones. Lei Yin was already considered lucky. It seemed that he had to make a trip to the bloody world. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. Fortunately, he had a backup plan. He had bought information about the bloody world. He would take a look at it later. Vice President. While Chu Fengyan was pondering, a disciple of the ancient snake trading company suddenly walked in. Get out. Can't you see that I'm talking to an important guest? Rosewood's face turned cold. As he spoke, he wanted to chase the disciple out. Honored guest. I wonder what kind of esteemed guest came to the Ancient Snake Merchant Association to actually make the Rosewood vice president personally receive him. A young and arrogant voice suddenly sounded from outside. Soon after, a young man walked in without a care. It was as if he did not care about the strict rules of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Chu Fengyan looked at the young man and felt a familiar power from him. It was similar to the power of Lei Yin and Lei Ming that Chu Fengyan had killed before. So it's young Master Lei. May I know what young Master Lei intends to buy? Rosewood was about to get angry, but the moment he heard this voice, the anger on his face quickly calmed down. Given the identity of the young man in front of him, even Rosewood didn't dare to anger him. It's nothing. My father is about to make a breakthrough, so he sent me to the Ancient Snake Merchant Association to buy a batch of bloodstones. The young man who was addressed as young Master Lei sized up Chu Fengyan. He glanced at Chu Fengyan's cultivation level and didn't put Chu Fengyan in his eyes. He ignored Chu Fengyan and continued to speak. I need 10,000 bloodstones. Here's 100 billion supreme grade spiritual stones. Give me the bloodstones. I still need to return to the family and pass them to my father. Young Master Lei took out an empty ring and passed it to Rosewood. Obviously, he was very clear about the price of the bloodstones. Rosewood was a little troubled by young Master Lei's actions. If young Master Lei had come earlier, it would have been fine. However, the bloodstones of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association had been bought out by Chu Fengyan. It was impossible for them to gather 10,000 bloodstones. What's wrong? Are you saying that my price is wrong? 10 million supreme grade spiritual stones for one bloodstone. What's wrong? Now that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association has become big, you want to bully your customers? Young Master Lei said coldly when he saw Rosewood's hesitation. Or is the Ancient Snake Merchant Association not planning to do business with the Lei family in the future? The bloodstones of our Ancient Snake Merchant Association have been bought out. It's impossible for us to gather more bloodstones now. We will only have more after a month. Rosewood quickly said, after all, the Lei family was one of the 8 royal families. If they really offended the Lei family, it would be troublesome for the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Rosewood's eyes suddenly flickered as he looked at Chu Fengyan and said, Young Master Chu, why don't you sell the 10,000 bloodstones to young Master Lei? Consider it as a favor to the Lei family. Young Master Chu? Where did this young Master Chu come from? Who do you think you are? How dare you snatch the bloodstones from the Lei family? Young Master Lei looked at Chu Fengyan and said in disdain after hearing Rosewood's words, Forget it. I'm in a good mood recently. I won't do anything to you. Hand over the 10,000 bloodstones. Our Lei family owes you a favor. If you encounter any trouble, you can come to us. Young Master Chu, the Lei family is one of the 8 royal families. If you have a good relationship with the Lei family, no one will dare to make things difficult for you in the imperial capital. Rosewood tried to persuade young Master Lei. Right now, his first thought was to send young Master Lei away. After all, he was from the Lei family, one of the 8 royal families. As for Chu Fengyan, although his identity was mysterious, he couldn't be more noble than the 8 royal families. There was no need to consider which side he would side with. I'm not selling. Naturally, Chu Fengyan saw through Mahogany's intentions. He sneered in his heart as he looked at young Master Lei and slowly opened his mouth. I want all the bloodstones of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. You can go to the other merchant associations. Boom! Rosewood was dumbfounded after hearing Chu Fengyan's words. He thought that by shifting the pressure to Chu Fengyan would back off in the face of the 8 royal families and settle this matter. However, he didn't expect Chu Fengyan to say such words in front of the 8 royal families. Chapter 1099. Now that Rosewood had found trouble with Chu Fengyan, he wanted Chu Fengyan to take a step back and resolve young Master Lei's problem. Chu Fengyan's answer was something he never expected. Even young Master Lei looked at Chu Fengyan in disbelief after hearing his words. What did you say? What? Can't you hear me? I said, I'll buy all the bloodstones in the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Chu Fengyan said loudly, as if he was afraid that young Master Lei couldn't hear him. Rosewood's face changed, and he hurriedly said, Young Master Chu, what are you talking about? Quickly apologize to young Master Lei. Young Master Lei is the second son of the Lei clan. His position in the younger generation of the Lei clan is second only to the young master of the Lei clan. Rosewood was afraid that Chu Fengyan didn't know the identity of young Master Lei, so he hurriedly explained. Young Master Lei's grandfather is a grand elder of the Lei clan, a quasi-emperor. You must not offend him. Rosewood was frightened when he said this. Chu Fengyan offending young Master Lei had nothing to do with him, but it would be troublesome if the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was implicated. Now, Rosewood was regretting that he agreed to sell the bloodstones to Chu Fengyan. Now, he didn't care about the benefits of doing business with Chu Fengyan. If young Master Lei held a grudge against him, his position in the Ancient Snake Merchant Association would plummet. One must know that the 8 great royal families were the Ancient Snake Merchant Association's biggest customers. Although the Lei clan alone wasn't enough to hurt the Ancient Snake Merchant Association, it was easy for them to deal with a vice president like him. So what? Does the Ancient Snake Merchant Association not intend to follow the principle of first come, first served? Chu Fengyan looked at Rosewood and said, 50,000 bloodstones. Hand it over. I'll ask the Ancient Snake Merchant Association if there's one less. After saying this, Chu Fengyan sat on the chair and didn't put young Master Lei in his eyes. Chu Fengmian had even killed the young master of the whole clan, one of the 8 great clans, let alone the second son of the Lei clan. The young master of the Lei clan was here. If he offended Chu Fengmian would also kill him. Very good, very good. I didn't expect such an interesting fellow to come to the imperial capital. Young Master Lei looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, "It seems that some people really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Young Master Chu, is it? 50,000 bloodstones? Hand them all over. Hand over the 50,000 bloodstones and kneel down to apologize to this young master. Then, this matter can be considered over." Young Master Lei stood in front of Chu Fengmian and stared at him as he spoke. It seemed like he was forgiving Chu Fengmian. Contribute all 50,000 bloodstones? Kid, are you dreaming? When Chu Fengmian heard young Master Lei's words, he almost laughed out loud. Who did he think he was? Even if the quasi-emperors of the Lei clan were here, Chu Fengmian would not be afraid, let alone a mere second young master of the Lei clan. You're so arrogant. I should kill you. But today, we're in the territory of the ancient snake chamber of commerce, so I won't make things difficult for you. Leave your empty ring, and I'll let you go. Chu Fengmian stared at young Master Lei and said coldly, Crazy, you're crazy. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Rosewood almost fainted. Although he knew that Chu Fengmian was rich, he did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so arrogant. He was facing one of the 8 great sovereign clans, the Lei clan. How could Chu Fengmian ask the second young master of the Lei clan to leave his empty ring? We're in trouble, completely in trouble. Rosewood hurriedly turned his head and said to young Master Lei, Young Master Lei, why don't you give our ancient snake chamber of commerce some face today and settle this outside? Ancient snake chamber of commerce's face? Who do you think you are? Young Master Lei did not care about Rosewood's words. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Chu Fengmian. In the imperial capital, no one had ever dared to speak to him like this. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was just an emperor. To the 8 great sovereign clans, even old ancestor Wu was no different from an ant. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was an emperor, someone who was even inferior to an ant. Young Master Lei's strength had reached the celestial realm, which was slightly higher than Chu Fengmian. How could an ant dare to provoke him? How could he tolerate this? Go to hell. Young Master Lei couldn't hold it in any longer. All of his spiritual energy suddenly burst out. His right hand turned into a sharp claw and clawed at Chu Fengmian. This sharp claw contained traces of lightning. It was ferocious and thunder rumbled. Although he was only in the celestial realm, the power of the claw was much fiercer than that of old ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm. Lightning snake bloodline? Impure lightning snake bloodline? It's not even a third-rate bloodline in the demonic beast world. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Chu Fengmian saw young Master Lei's claw coming at him, but he was still sitting firmly in his chair. At the moment of the attack, Chu Fengmian slowly raised his head. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian slashed out with his claw as well. The blood of the battle dragon condensed and transformed into a claw of the battle dragon. Crack! Thunderclaw was torn apart on the spot. War Dragon Claw, a member of the Dragon Clan? Young Master Lei's eyes flickered when he saw Chu Fengmian's attack. He could also tell that Chu Fengmian's claw was a dragon's claw. Although Chu Fengmian tried his best to hide the dragon's might, young Master Lei could still sense it. Young Master Lei was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. A member of the Dragon Clan, how dare you come to my ancient snake country during the period when the country is sealed? How dare you be so arrogant? Don't you know that even if you die in the country, the Dragon Clan will not avenge you? How dare you break the rules? Fine, I've never tasted dragon meat before. Today I'll start with you. Young Master Lei laughed sinisterly and suddenly let out a long roar. Thunderous Realm. Thunder rumbled from young Master Lei's body, causing the entire ancient snake merchant guild to tremble. Although Redwood could stop it, he did not dare to do so. If he did, he would have to face young Master Lei's endless anger. He could only gather his spiritual energy to protect the ancient snake merchant guild. In the heart of the thunderstorm, young Master Lei's body suddenly changed into a huge snake. The snake's scales were filled with lightning. Kid, Have a taste of the power of lightning. Chapter 1100. Young Master Lei's original form had boundless strength. With the addition of the lightning power, the entire ancient snake chamber of commerce was trembling. Many emperors hurriedly left to avoid the disaster. They were afraid that they would be affected. It's over, it's over. This kid is really going to die. Redwood could tell that young Master Lei was truly enraged. Young Master Lei had inherited the Thunder Serpent bloodline. Although his cultivation base was only at the utmost heavenly realm, he was still at the utmost heavenly realm. Although he was a heavenly emperor, if young Master Lei unleashed his full strength, he would be stronger than Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm. Even Redwood did not dare to resist, let alone Chu Fengyan, who was only an emperor. In his opinion, Chu Fengyan was definitely going to die. It was just a pity that Chu Fengyan's wealth was wasted. Idiot! How dare you provoke young Master Lei? Another mysterious man suddenly appeared and shook his head. No matter who it was, they all felt that Chu Fengyan was going to die under this attack. Boom! The lightning bombarded Chu Fengyan's body. Rumble! The place where Chu Fengyan was filled with endless thunderstorms, and Chu Fengyan, who was in the center of the thunderstorm, was obviously a dead man. However, at this moment, the lightning suddenly dispersed, and a dragon's might erupted from where Chu Fengyan was. Chu Fengyan's figure suddenly rushed out from the thunderstorm. As for Chu Fengyan's body, he was actually completely unharmed. A layer of golden dragon scales had completely blocked the power of the lightning. What's going on? This is the ancient Dragon King body? The Dragon Clan's secret body refining technique? He knows it. Is he the descendant of the Dragon King? Redwood was stunned. Then he reacted and said, with his experience, he could naturally see that the layer of golden dragon scales on Chu Fengyan's body was the Dragon Clan's secret body refining technique, the ancient Dragon King body. It was said that even in the Dragon Clan, there were very few dragons who could cultivate the ancient Dragon King body. Only the descendants of a Dragon King were qualified to learn it. Could Chu Fengyan be the descendant of a Dragon King? Young Master Lei's eyes flickered when he saw the golden dragon scales on Chu Fengyan's body. He seemed to be thinking about something. Then he sneered, "It seems that you do have some status. But what if you're the descendant of the Dragon King? You've already broken the rules by coming to the ancient Serpent Nation during the period of the nation sealing. If I kill you, even if your clan is stronger, they won't dare to come here again." The killing intent in young Master Lei's eyes did not decrease. So what if Chu Fengyan was backed by the Dragon Clan? Chu Fengyan had already broken the rules. Even if he died in the kingdom of the ancient serpent, they had no reason to seek revenge. Moreover, as one of the 8 royal families of the ancient serpent nation, the Lei family was not afraid of the Dragon King clan. Let's see how many times your tortoise shell can withstand. As he spoke, young Master Lei once again gathered his spirit energy. Rolling thunder appeared once again. The thunder immediately turned into a long spear in the air and pierced towards Chu Fengyan. The lightning spear pierced through the void with extreme speed, thrusting toward Chu Fengyan. Even Forefather Wu of the immortal realm would be crippled if he didn't die, let alone Chu Fengyan of the Fate realm. No matter how tough the ancient Dragon King's body was, it was impossible for it to withstand his spear. "Brat, you will die with this move." A trace of ruthlessness flashed in young Master Lei's eyes. He could already imagine Chu Fengyan being pierced by the lightning spear in the next moment. "Is this all you've got?" Chu Fengyan suddenly raised his head and looked at young Master Lei's attack. The moment he saw the lightning spear, a trace of disdain flashed across his eyes. "Even a sovereign can't kill me with one move." Chu Fengyan had the ability to fight against a quasi-emperor. Even if a true venerable emperor were to come, killing Chu Fengyan in one move would be a fantasy. Not to mention young Master Lei in front of him. Forget it. I gave you a chance. If you don't know how to cherish it, then you can die. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengyan's eyes. It seemed that young Master Lei did not know how to cherish his mercy. In that case, there was no need for Chu Fengyan to show mercy. "How dare you be so arrogant in the face of death?" Young Master Lei curled his lips and said disdainfully. In his opinion, Chu Fengyan's words were nothing but empty bravado. "Is that so?" Chu Fengmian did not refute. Instead, he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the lightning spear. What is this kid trying to do? Is he trying to commit suicide? Rosewood and the mysterious young man were shocked at the same time. His action of grabbing the lightning spear with his bare hands was simply suicidal. One must know that no one below the level of a quasi-emperor would dare to underestimate the sharpness of the lightning spear. Even they would mainly avoid the lightning spear instead of facing it head-on. As for trying to grab the tip of the lightning spear with his bare hands, it would be completely suicidal and suicidal. In their line of sight, Chu Fengmian grabbed the lightning spear with one hand. There was not even much spiritual energy bursting out from Chu Fengmian's palm. The extremely sharp lightning spear was suddenly caught in Chu Fengmian's palm. Even when the lightning spear pierced into Chu Fengmian's hand, it could not leave a single mark on Chu Fengmian's hand. Even with the sharpness of the lightning spear, it could not leave a mark on Chu Fengmian's palm. They could not even sense the slightest trace of spiritual energy from Chu Fengmian's hand. In other words, Chu Fengmian was grabbing the lightning spear with his physical body. How is this possible? This time, Rosewood, the mysterious young man, and young Master Lei were all stunned. It was as if they had seen a ghost. The sharpness of the lightning spear was well known in the imperial capital. Even a quasi-emperor had once tried to grab the lightning spear with his physical body and had suffered a lot of injuries. Now, the lightning spear was actually unable to escape from Chu Fengmian's palm. It could not even leave a mark on Chu Fengmian's skin. Chu Fengmian's physical body was even tougher than a quasi-emperor's. The lightning spear is only SOS so, Chu Fengmian said indifferently. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Chu Fengmian exerted force in his palm and pinched the lightning spear. Crack! In an instant, the lightning spear was directly crushed in Chu Fengmian's palm. Not only did Chu Fengmian resist the lightning spear with his physical body, he had also easily crushed young Master Lei's trump card, the lightning spear. Chapter 1101. Young Master Lei's eyes flashed with viciousness. The moment the lightning spear was crushed by Chu Fengmian, young Master Lei suddenly came to his senses. He immediately turned into a streak of light and flew out of the ancient Snake Merchant Association. This was the imperial capital. As long as he left the ancient Snake Merchant Association, he could quickly summon the experts of the Lei family. At that time, it would be easy to suppress Chu Fengmian. What? Trying to leave? Did I give you permission to leave? Seeing young Master Lei trying to escape, Chu Fengmian sneered. He suddenly reached out and grabbed young Master Lei. A vortex formed in Chu Fengmian's palm. Young Master Lei was about to leave the ancient Snake Merchant Association. However, as Chu Fengmian made his move, the space around young Master Lei was suddenly sealed. Even he, who was only a step away from the outside, couldn't take another step forward. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's hand made a grabbing motion and young Master Lei's body was caught in Chu Fengmian's palm. Young Master Chu, please show mercy. Seeing young Master Lei in Chu Fengmian's palm, Mahogany hurriedly reacted and shouted. If something happened to young Master Lei in their Ancient Snake Merchant Association, the Ancient Snake Merchant Association would not be able to escape responsibility. As Mahogany spoke, he rushed towards Chu Fengmian, wanting to snatch young Master Lei from Chu Fengmian's hand. Get lost! Chu Fengmian furrowed his brows and mercilessly said. Energy gathered in his palm and directly grabbed young Master Lei's body in his palm. No matter how young Master Lei struggled, he could not escape from Chu Fengmian's palm. With his status, no one in the imperial capital dared to attack him, let alone being held in his hand. This was unacceptable to him. Young Master Lei was like a little chick being held in Chu Fengmian's hand. He was extremely angry and shouted at Chu Fengmian. Kid, let go of me. How dare you treat me like this? My Lei family will not let you off. No matter who you are, I will tear you into pieces. Tear me into pieces? I would like to see who can tear me into pieces. You still dare to be arrogant at this time? Kneel down. When Chu Fengmian heard young Master Lei's words, he coldly snorted. He exerted force in his palm, and young Master Lei's body was directly grasped by Chu Fengmian. After that, a surge of spiritual energy pressed down on young Master Lei's body, forcing him to kneel on the ground. Stay your hand, young Master Chu. This is the ancient serpent merchant group, and no one is allowed to attack here. Otherwise, you'll be violating the ancient serpent merchant group's rules. The mysterious man beside Rosewood shouted anxiously. If young Master Lei really had to kneel in front of Chu Fengyan today, then this matter really couldn't be resolved. Young Master Lei losing face was a small matter. Even if he was defeated by Chu Fengyan, it was still nothing. However, if he were to let young Master Lei kneel down in front of everyone, it would be a slap to the Lei family's face. The dignity of the 8 royal families could not be blasphemed. At that time, the world would truly be turned upside down. The mysterious man was trying to use his identity as the representative of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild to suppress the matter. The Ancient Snake Merchant Guild's rules? What the hell was that? If he can cause trouble, so can I. The person who made the first move wasn't me. If you stick your nose into other people's business, I'll make you kneel here with me. Chu Fengyan said disdainfully when he heard the mysterious man's words. This source of trouble was transferred to Chu Fengyan by the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. When young Master Lei made his move earlier, no one from the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild stepped in to help Chu Fengyan. Now, using the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild's rules to pressure Chu Fengyan was simply a joke. If the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild had said a few words to persuade Chu Fengyan, perhaps Chu Fengyan would still give them face this time. However, their attitude of not caring about the matter had already caused Chu Fengyan to not have a good impression of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. You, Chu Fengyan, don't go overboard. This is the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild, not a place where you can act impudently. The mysterious man went crazy when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. He was also a vice president of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild and had a high status in the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. Even a quasi-emperor treated him as a peer, not to mention asking him to kneel down. Chu Fengyan, do you think you're a quasi-emperor? Even a quasi-emperor wouldn't dare to cause trouble in our Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. Who do you think you are? I'll stand here and see if you have the guts to attack me. The mysterious man looked at Chu Fengyan and snorted coldly. This was the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. Even a quasi-emperor wouldn't dare to act impudently in the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. So what if Chu Fengyan was strong? Would he really dare to cause trouble in the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild? After all, Chu Fengyan didn't have a background like the 8 great royal families. Is that so? It seems like you've been standing for too long and need to kneel for a while. Since you want to kneel down, I'll fulfill your wish. Chu Fengyan moved his palm, and young Master Lei's body knelt down in front of Chu Fengyan. The spiritual energy on young Master Lei's body suppressed his body, making him unable to resist. At the same time, Chu Fengyan made his move. His claw was extremely fast. The battle dragon's claw was formed and slashed at the mysterious man. Kid, you really dare to attack? Well, you're the one who initiated the attack. Even if I kill you, you can't blame my head. The mysterious man was stunned. Seeing Chu Fengyan's attack, a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. You're just a heavenly fate realm kid. Do you think you're invincible after some encounters? It's a pity that the gap between our realms is too big. Your encounters are meaningless in front of absolute strength. The mysterious man took a step forward and his aura suddenly burst out. It was much stronger than the rosewood. The aura of an invincible immortal realm expert was several times stronger than that of an ordinary immortal realm expert. As soon as he made his move, ghostly immortals circled around him. Mist spread out and turned the surroundings into a ghost domain. 3 ghostly immortals walked out of the ghost domain. They were all never-dying patriarchs. Apparently, they were all never-dying patriarchs when they were alive. They were peerless experts. Later on, they were killed by the mysterious man, who refined their bodies into ghosts. Beside these 3 ghostly immortals were countless ghostly kings, ghostly generals, and imps. They entered the sea and rushed toward Chu Fengyan in a mighty manner. Chapter 1102. The mysterious man smiled malevolently. At his command, the surrounding specters, and the endless sea of ghosts charged at Chu Fengyan. The three Neverwither Realm specters were at the forefront. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent as they unleashed countless killing moves at Chu Fengyan. Vice Leader Spectre God, kill this brat. Lei Clan will reward you handsomely if you kill him. Young Master Lei shouted when he saw the mysterious man making his move. Young Master Lei, don't worry. This brat is dead for sure. My specters are not something a mere Emperor Realm expert can withstand. The mysterious man who was addressed as the Vice Leader of the Spectre God snorted coldly. He channeled all his strength into the specters and sent them charging at Chu Fengyan. Killing him will be a piece of cake. Is that so? Chu Fengyan sneered when he saw the sea of ghosts charging at him. Chu Fengyan's hands suddenly moved, and a colorless flame condensed in the center of Chu Fengyan's palms. He struck out, and it turned into a sea of fire that filled the sky. The endless sea of ghosts were all burned by the flames, and they fell into the sea of fire. They were unable to resist, and many of the powerful ghosts and deities tried to escape. However, this pure-colored flame was like a sturdy cage, firmly imprisoning them within. No matter how much power they unleashed, they would still be trapped within. How dare these puny specters act so presumptuously in front of me? Chu Fengyan pointed his finger, and the flame suddenly became more ferocious. The specters who were still trying their best to resist were mercilessly burned by the flame. In an instant, the sea of ghosts was burned to ashes by Chu Fengyan's flame. How is this possible? Mahogany and many of the ancient Snake Merchant Association's disciples were stunned by this scene. They could not believe their eyes and began to mumble to themselves. This was the Vice Leader of the Spectre God's endless sea of ghosts. Even a Boundary Emperor would have to expend a lot of effort to destroy it. In a Neverwither realm, it was almost invincible. However, Chu Fengyan destroyed it with a single move. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have thought that everything in front of them was a dream. The Vice Leader of the Spectre God was even more stunned. He was unable to react for a long time. He wanted to say something, but all of a sudden, his body was grabbed by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan held him tightly in his hand. Didn't you say that I don't dare? Kneel down. Rumble. Draconic might erupted from Chu Fengyan's body and pressed down on the vice chairman of the Spectre sect. His knees buckled, and he knelt before Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan, don't go too far. You probably don't know how powerful our ancient Snake Merchant Association is. You dare to offend our ancient Snake Merchant Association. You talk too much. Shut up. Chu Fengyan kicked the vice chairman in the mouth, forcing him to swallow his words. At the same time, the vice chairman's tongue was crushed, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. After mumbling for a long time, no one could hear what he was saying clearly. How terrifying! Even young Master Lei and Vice President Spectre Deity were easily suppressed by him. What kind of strength is this? Heavenly Mandate Realm? How is this possible? Only a quasi-emperor can do all this. How tyrannical! Not only is he not afraid of our ancient Snake Merchant Association, he doesn't even put the Lei family in his eyes. I'm afraid this won't end well. The disciples of the ancient Snake Merchant Association were stunned. Even they had never seen such a scene. In their opinion, a colossus like the ancient Snake Merchant Association was an invincible existence. Even though a quasi-emperor was powerful enough to cause trouble for the ancient Snake Merchant Association, no quasi-emperor would be willing to do so. After all, it would be a complete falling out with the ancient Snake Merchant Association. No quasi-emperor would take the initiative to provoke the ancient Snake Merchant Association. Even if they suffered a small loss, they would only vent their anger in secret and would not do it openly. However, Chu Fengyan was different. He would take revenge for every little thing. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This had always been his style. Since the ancient Snake Merchant Association dared to provoke him, Chu Fengyan would not hold back. If he wanted to make a move, he would make a move without caring about his status. Mahogany, bring me all the bloodstones of your ancient Snake Merchant Association. Consider this as a punishment for provoking me. Don't try to trick me with 50,000 bloodstones. I know that your ancient snake merchant association has other bloodstones. Bring them all over. Chu Fengmian grabbed a chair and sat down. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's right foot stepped on young Master Lei's face, crushing his face to the ground. Die. I'll kill you. What kind of status did young Master Lei have? It was one thing for him to kneel, but now his face was being stepped on by Chu Fengmian. This made him furious. However, his anger was meaningless. He could not struggle under Chu Fengmian's foot. Only his angry roar could be heard. I won't wait too long. Bring me the bloodstones in 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll take this guy's life. Chu Fengmian pointed at the Vice President Spectre deity and said coldly, threatening the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Mahogany was about to go crazy when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He had never imagined that his Ancient Snake Merchant Association would be threatened. However, he did not dare to go against Chu Fengmian's words. Given Chu Fengmian's character, he would really kill the Vice President Spectre deity if he did. Young Master Chu, please calm down. Today's matter is just a misunderstanding. I've already ordered the servants to bring the bloodstones here. Mahogany said hurriedly, afraid of angering Chu Fengmian. He could see that if Chu Fengmian was willing, he would be kneeling on the ground like the Vice President Spectre deity. The crowd below was in an uproar when they heard Mahogany's words. A vice president of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was forced to kneel on the ground by Chu Fengmian. The other vice president did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Chu Fengmian. This is too scary. Even a boundary emperor doesn't have such power. A boundary emperor might be strong, but he wouldn't dare to do such a thing. This person is a lunatic that cannot be offended. And that young Master Lei, he's being stepped on. Let's not talk for now. The experts of our Ancient Snake Merchant Association have arrived. While the disciples of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association were talking, another terrifying pressure descended on the 8th floor. A total of 3 old men walked out at the same time. Chapter 1103. These 3 old men seemed to have a higher status than Redwood and the 2 vice presidents of the Spectre Chamber of Commerce. They were the hidden big shots of the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. As soon as the 3 of them entered the 8th floor, the chaos became a lot quieter. 3 consecrators. Many disciples of the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce immediately greeted the 3 old men upon their arrival. What's going on? Redwood, Spectre, why are there people causing trouble at the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce? Why aren't you stopping them? What's going on? When the 3 old men arrived and saw the mess around them, they couldn't help but ask. They scanned the area and only saw the red mahogany. Redwood, where's the Spectre Chamber of Commerce? Where did they go? What's going on? Woo woo woo. A commotion was heard. The 3 consecrators immediately turned around and saw the vice president of the Spectre Chamber of Commerce and young Master Lei kneeling in front of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, on the other hand, was sitting on a chair, drinking tea while watching the show. It was as if all of this had nothing to do with him. He was relaxed and relaxed. However, Chu Fengmian's foot was still stepping on young Master Lei's face, causing his face to deform. Damn it! Seeing the 2 people kneeling on the ground, the expressions of the 3 consecrators changed abruptly and instantly turned cold. What's going on? Who dares to cause trouble at the Ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce? Let's save young Master Lei and the Spectre Chamber of Commerce first. The 3 consecrators suddenly gathered their spiritual energy and grabbed at young Master Lei and the vice president of the Spectre Chamber of Commerce, trying to break the seal on them. Are you looking for me? A cold laugh was heard at that instant. Did I give you permission to attack? Are you trying to break my seal? Get out of my sight. Chu Fengmian made his move at the same time. He gathered his spiritual energy and turned it into a battle dragon claw, sweeping it across. Boom! The 3 consecrators who were trying to break Chu Fengmian's seal were forced back by the battle dragon claw. Their bodies were pushed back, but they did not suffer any injuries. Oh, a joint attack? Chu Fengmian muttered to himself when he saw this. Chu Fengmian was naturally able to tell that the 3 consecrators had used a joint attack to block the attack of the battle dragon claw so easily. It turned out that these three consecrators were all blood brothers. At the same time, they had cultivated an extremely mysterious joint attack technique. In the face of Chu Fengmian's bombardment, the three of them worked together to neutralize most of the power. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Ancestor Wu was, he would be severely injured by Chu Fengmian's Battle Dragon Claw. However, this was only a casual attack from Chu Fengmian. He did not use his full strength. If Chu Fengmian really used his full strength, the three old men would not be able to withstand it even if they used their combined attack. Such power! The three consecrators slowly dispersed the power of the Battle Dragon Claw as they looked at Chu Fengmian with fear in their eyes. The attack of the Battle Dragon Claw was something that even the combined attack of the three of them could not completely nullify. At first glance, Chu Fengmian's strength seemed to be much stronger. "Rosewood, what happened?" One of the consecrators asked Redwood. They had rushed over with the intention of subduing Chu Fengmian. However, it seemed that it would not be easy to subdue Chu Fengmian. They had no choice but to use another method. "It's like this." Mahogany recounted the events that had just transpired without missing a single word. It was supposed to be a simple matter, but it had developed to this point. Even Redwood was stunned and did not know what to do. After listening to Redwood, the three consecrators frowned. This matter was simpler than they had expected. It could even be said that it was not a big deal. In their opinion, it was not wrong for Redwood to divert the trouble and make Chu Fengmian retreat. However, it was a pity that Redwood did not know Chu Fengmian well. There was no one in the 9 regions who could make Chu Fengmian retreat, let alone in the ancient monster continent. The three consecrators looked at each other and understood each other's decision. One of them said to Chu Fengmian, "Our ancient serpent merchant group is at fault here. Let's both take a step back. Mr. Chu, the ancient serpent merchant group will give you 40,000 bloodstones, and the remaining 10,000 bloodstones will be sold to young Master Lei as compensation." The consecrator looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly. In his opinion, this was a good outcome. It gave Chu Fengmian a way out and could also appease young Master Lei. As for the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's reputation, no one would know about what had happened today as long as it was kept a secret. Even Redwood nodded. This gave Chu Fengmian a way out. It was enough to resolve this matter. Only Chu Fengmian's smile widened after hearing the consecrator's words. It seemed that the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce was still thinking highly of things. They actually wanted Chu Fengmian to take a step back. Chu Fengmian wasn't in the wrong. He wouldn't take a step back in the past, and he wouldn't this time either. These three consecrators didn't seem to be here to resolve the matter. Instead, they were here to pressure Chu Fengmian and force him to take a step back. Since that was the case, Chu Fengmian didn't need to show them any mercy. After all, he had already made a vice president of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce kneel on the ground. It didn't matter if a few more consecrators kneeled. Take a step back. Chu Fengmian looked at the three consecrators and said coldly, "Your ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce did something wrong. Aren't you going to compensate me?" "Compensation? What compensation do you want?" Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, one of the consecrators said disdainfully, "Our ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce won't pursue your responsibility for causing a ruckus. Otherwise, do you think you can leave the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce alive today?" The 10,000 bloodstones were also given to young Master Lei by you to appease young Master Lei's anger. This way, today's matter can be resolved peacefully. That's right. You also damaged many of our ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's things. You must compensate us. At least take out 1 billion supreme-grade spirit stones as compensation. Another consecrator looked coldly at Chu Fengmian and said, Chapter 1104. The three consecrated looked at Chu Fengmian at the same time. They all had the same thought. So what if Chu Fengmian was strong? This was the headquarters of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce, and there were quasi-emperors here. What could Chu Fengmian do? Therefore, in their opinion, Chu Fengmian would definitely accept their request and swallow his grievances. On the phone, however, they didn't notice that the murderous intent in Chu Fengmian's eyes intensified as they spoke. It seemed that Chu Fengmian was still too kind. "Looks like you old fogies are courting death." Chu Fengmian slowly stood up from his chair, looked at the three consecrators, and said coldly, "Can't bear it? You can't bear my anger either. I'll give you half an incense stick's time to bring all the bloodstones here. Otherwise, you'll end up like these two good-for-nothings." Chu Fengmian glanced at the three consecrated experts, then at the vice-chairman of the Ghost Deity Society and young Master Lei, who were kneeling below. The meaning of his words was self-evident. Arrogance, absolute arrogance. Chu Fengmian actually displayed such an arrogant attitude in front of the three consecrated experts of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. The vice-chairman of the Redwood Chamber of Commerce couldn't help but frown. Chu Fengmian really didn't know how to appreciate favors. The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce had already given Chu Fengmian a way out. As long as Chu Fengmian admitted defeat, today's matter would be considered over. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would still be so arrogant? Looks like the three consecrated experts will have to teach him a lesson. Otherwise, this kid won't know the immensity of heaven and earth and will cause trouble every day. Redwood Chamber of Commerce thought. Chu Fengmian obviously had some hidden forces behind him. It wasn't realistic to kill Chu Fengmian, but at the very least, they had to suppress and teach him a lesson today. "Kid, what did you say?" The faces of the three consecrated experts instantly turned gloomy after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. "Do you think you're a quasi-emperor? Even a quasi-emperor wouldn't dare to say such words to us. You're just a kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. We've given you a way out, so don't blame us for not giving you any face. No need to talk nonsense. Suppress this kid and see if he'll still be so stubborn when the time comes." The three consecrated experts spoke at the same time. The three consecrated experts were blood brothers who grew up together, and they cultivated martial arts was almost as powerful as a quasi-emperor when they joined forces. Therefore, even a quasi-emperor would have to expend some effort to defeat these three consecrators, let alone Chu Fengmian, who was merely at the heavenly mandate realm. In their opinions was heavens's. Triple suppression of sufs was of s's of tt of fof a, thus was of fof of heaven s. Chu Fengmian, on the other hand, sneered. Facing the pagoda, descending from the sky, he suddenly made his move. Chu Fengmian had the ability to fight even against a real quasi-emperor, not to mention that the joint attack of the three consecrators was only at the level of a quasi-emperor. They were no different from the Shueshan that Chu Fengmian had killed before. There was still a huge gap between them and a true quasi-emperor. Since Chu Fengmian could easily kill the Shueshan, he also did not think much of these three consecrators. Chu Fengmian swung his battle dragon claw in the air. This time, the 1,000 formations carved on the dragon scales of the battle dragon claw were unleashed at the same time, enhancing the attack. With a loud rumble, he blasted towards the pagoda. Crack! Under the bombardment of the battle dragon claw, the three pearls of the pagoda were unable to withstand the tremendous power and were shattered on the spot. At the same time, the pagoda was also shattered into pieces. Chu Fengmian easily broke through the joint attack of the three reverends. This brat is hiding his strength. Seeing the transformation of the battle dragon claw, the three consecrators were shocked. The power that erupted from the battle dragon claw was more than 10 times stronger than before. Use the power of the formation to suppress this brat. The trio was startled, but they did not panic. They were currently at the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. It might be more difficult for them to deal with Chu Fengmian outside. However, the terrain was on their side. The three consecrators executed a series of hand seals together, causing a brilliant glow to appear all of a sudden, enhancing the strength of the three consecrators. With the enhancement of the glow, the strength of the three consecrators improved further, and they were only a step away from the boundary in Monarch Realm. The three of them uttered a roar and attacked Chu Fengmian once again. The enhancement of the formation. The Ancient Snake Merchant Association itself was a huge formation. The three of them were able to control the power of the formation to enhance their strength. Even a boundary monarch would not be able to break through the formation. It was also the reason why they were not afraid of anything. Unless Chu Fengmian managed to break through the formation, They were undefeatable. Formation? Do you think I can't tell? With a thought, the bloodline of the battle dragon in Chu Fengmian's body became restless, causing his figure to expand and transform into the appearance of an ancient battle dragon. The primordial battle dragon sprang forward in the direction of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. Bang! The Ancient Snake Merchant Association began to tremble after receiving the attack. Many of its disciples immediately fled for their lives. A formation appeared on the surface of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association. The formation was complicated and ancient, which was the defensive formation that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association had set up when it was first established. After Chu Fengmian's attack, countless cracks appeared on the protective formation. How is this possible? Even the defensive formation was destroyed by him. The bloodline of the battle dragon. His strength is too terrifying. We need a great highness to deal with him. The three consecrators uttered a roar. It was as if they were summoning someone. Since the defensive formation had been destroyed by Chu Fengmian with a single attack, the three of them did not dare to face Chu Fengmian anymore. They immediately tried to flee for their lives. Did I say you can leave? Come here and kneel down. Chu Fengmian glanced at the three consecrators who had already turned into rays of light and uttered a dragon roar. Chapter 1105. The three consecrators of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce were strong enough to fight against a quasi-emperor when they joined forces. However, they were defeated by Chu Fengmian so easily. Everyone was dumbfounded and could not believe their eyes. This was a familiar sight. Just now, Chu Fengmian had the vice president of the Spectre sect in his hands. Young Master Chu, you can't. Rosewood shouted anxiously. It was already a big deal that the vice president of the supernatural entity was kneeling before Chu Fengmian. If the three consecrators were to kneel before Chu Fengmian, it would be a disaster. However, Chu Fengmian did not listen to him. He snorted coldly and exerted more force. Three more figures appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. The three consecrators were kneeling on the ground like the vice president of the supernatural entity and young Master Lei. Chu Fengmian did not care about offending the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. Since the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce thought that Chu Fengmian was easy to bully, Chu Fengmian did not need to show them any mercy today. Kid, just you wait. The great sovereign is in the Chamber of Commerce today. When he arrives, it will be your doomsday. One of the consecrators was still kneeling on the ground and shouted loudly. Shut up. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly and kicked the consecrator's tongue. Just like the vice president of the supernatural entity, the consecrator could only whimper and could no longer speak. The other two consecrators did not dare to speak after seeing this scene. However, the resentment in their eyes showed their thoughts. Great sovereign, I will wait here and see when your great sovereign will arrive. Chu Fengmian sat on the chair again and looked at the empty space in front of him. Soon, an ancient aura shrouded the area. This aura alone was enough to make old ancestor Wu gasp for breath. It was the aura of a quasi-emperor. The aura of an emperor's aura alone was enough to bring about endless power. The target of this aura was none other than Chu Fengmian, who was sitting on the chair. Great sovereign, it's the great sovereign's emperor's aura. The great sovereign is here. Countless ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce disciples hurriedly knelt on the ground. This was their respect for a sovereign. Even Mahogany was no exception as he knelt down on the ground. Ancestor Wu was like an ant in front of a quasi-emperor. He could only kneel down on the ground. Only Chu Fengmian remained seated. Facing the emperor's might, he was not afraid at all. Trying to act mysterious? It's just a little emperor's might. Break for me. Instead, he slowly raised his hand and pressed forward. The ferocious and majestic emperor's aura was completely destroyed, but Chu Fengmian remained seated in his chair, completely unaffected. With a wave of his hand, he had broken through the emperor's might. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have imagined that a Heaven's Mandate cultivator could break the emperor's aura with a wave of his hand. The emperor's aura represented the majesty of a quasi-emperor. It was a fatal restraint for old ancestor Wu, but Chu Fengmian had easily broken through it. This was even more unbelievable than Chu Fengyin defeating the three consecrators. No matter how strong the three consecrators were, old Ancestor Wu was still in the immortal realm and had not truly stepped into the Emperor realm. But now, Chu Fengyin was able to break through the Emperor's aura with a wave of his hand. It was as if Chu Fengyin had stepped into the Emperor realm. Only an Emperor could fight against an Emperor. This was a truth that had been passed down since ancient times in the ancient monster continent. Looking at Chu Fengyin in front of him, Mahogany's heart was a little crazy. Everything Chu Fengyin had done was completely beyond his understanding. Oh, you actually broke this Emperor's might? In 1,000 years, this is the first time someone below the Emperor realm has broken through the Emperor's aura of a quasi-Emperor. What a pity, what a pity. A white-robed figure slowly descended under the Emperor's aura. This white-robed man looked like he was only in his 20s and had an ordinary appearance. However, when everyone saw him, they could not help but feel some reverence for him. While this was the might of a venerated emperor, this white-clothed man before them was a true quasi-emperor. He had surpassed the life and death steps and stepped into the Emperor realm. What's a pity? Chu Fengyin looked at the white-robed man and said coldly, "It's a pity that such a genius will fall in this Emperor's hands today." The great senior lord looked at Chu Fengyin and said coldly, "Boy, no one has dared to make a scene in my ancient snake chamber of commerce for 1,000 years. It should be a capital offense, but considering your aptitude, as long as you stay in the ancient snake chamber of commerce and become a slave for 1,000 years, I will let you go today." The great senior lord looked at Chu Fengyin and said word by word. His words were a verdict, and he didn't give Chu Fengyin the slightest explanation. "Great senior lord, 1,000 years is too easy for this boy. He must be a slave for the rest of his life. Sparing him the death penalty is already a great gift to him." A foreign elder, who was kneeling on the ground, shouted loudly. Noisy, Chu Fengyin stomped down on the consecrator, crushing his head. Blood and gore splattered everywhere. Although the consecrator's head quickly regenerated, the pain of having his head crushed was something he had to endure. Courting death, the great senior lord was furious. Chu Fengyin had crushed the foreign elder's head in front of him. Chu Fengyin didn't put him in his eyes. "Boy, you dare to provoke an Emperor Realm Venerable. It seems like you really want to die. The dignity of an Emperor Realm Venerable cannot be blasphemed. Kneel down." The great senior lord attacked, and the sky changed color. A quasi-emperor attacked. Each of his moves contained the power of the heavens and earth. A seal was formed in his palm, and he threw a palm strike at Chu Fengyin. The speed of the palm strike was extremely fast. It was 10 times faster than old Ancestor Chiwu. In an instant, it had arrived in front of Chu Fengyin. In front of this palm, no one under the sovereign realm could withstand it. "Break." At this moment, Chu Fengyin suddenly spat out a word. Then, a dragon roar was heard. Tianlong 8 notes. It was a secret technique of the Battle Dragon clan. The word break blocked the power of the palm strike, preventing it from getting close to Chu Fengyin's body. "Oh, a secret technique of the Dragon clan? It seems like you're from a big clan of the Dragon clan. However, even if you're the son of the Dragon King, you still have to die for causing trouble in the ancient snake chamber of commerce." The great senior lord snorted disdainfully. He didn't care about the Dragon clan at all. The ancient snake chamber of commerce was backed by the ancient snake empire. Even if something happened, there would be someone to take care of it. Chapter 1106. Great Venerable Lord is really angry. This brat is finished. No one can stop Great Venerable Lord's anger. If he had knelt down and begged for mercy at the beginning, he might have had a chance to live. Unfortunately, with his aptitude, he is one of the most monstrous geniuses in the ancient snake country. He is going to die today. The disciples of the ancient snake chamber of commerce all sighed when they heard the Great Venerable Lord's words. Today, no matter how monstrous Chu Fengyin's aptitude was, he was just an ant in front of the angry Great Venerable Lord. Everyone below the Emperor realm was an ant, but no one had ever broken this rule that had been passed down since ancient times. Kill, kill, kill. In front of the Great Venerable Lord, Chu Fengyan suddenly shouted the word kill repeatedly. In an instant, his aura reached an extreme point. These words contained an ancient Tao of slaughter. The cultivators of the ancient snake chamber of commerce who were watching trembled when they saw the word kill. It was as if the word kill was enough to take away their lives. Little brat, have a taste of the Tao of killing God. This emperor knows that you have encountered many things, but unfortunately, you still haven't reached the emperor realm. Everyone below the emperor realm is an ant. This is the truth that no one can break. The great venerable lord looked at Chu Fengyan as if he was looking at a dead man. He thought that with his strength as a quasi-emperor, dealing with Chu Fengyan would be a piece of cake. He didn't expect that his first move would be blocked so easily by Chu Fengyan. For a quasi-emperor like him, this was absolutely shameful and humiliating. Now he was really angry. The Tao of killing God descended and bombarded Chu Fengyan with the word kill, as if he wanted to kill Chu Fengyan forever. The world shook, and even the heavens were enraged. The full strength of a quasi-emperor was enough to affect the world. All the disciples of the ancient snake chamber of commerce knelt on the ground and trembled, trying to resist this killing intent. Ha ha ha! Little brat, you are going to die. How dare you compete with a quasi-emperor? You are really courting death. Young Master Lei, who was kneeling on the ground, laughed crazily. If the great venerable lord had attacked, Chu Fengyan might have had a chance to survive. But now, the great exalted lord was enraged. Under his all-out attack, Chu Fengyan was already a dead man. The way of killing gods. With such a crude, killing intent, he dared to call himself the killing god? You're just a mere quasi-emperor who hasn't truly stepped into the emperor realm, yet you keep calling yourself an emperor. Do you really think you've become a true emperor? Chu Fengyan said disdainfully as he looked at the 8 words that were bombarding him. A quasi-emperor was actually just someone who was half a step into the emperor realm. They had not truly become an emperor yet, which was why they were called quasi-emperors. In ancient times, quasi-emperors were not considered emperors at all. They were only slightly stronger than old ancestors. It was just that quasi-emperors were rare in this era. So the fact that quasi-emperors were included among the sovereigns was actually just a form of self-deception. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but sneer when he heard the great venerable lord's words. Oomph. So what if this emperor has yet to step into the emperor realm? The power of a quasi-emperor is not something that a little fellow can contend against. The great venerable lord's face showed some annoyance when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. He had always called himself an emperor, so of course, he knew about the matters of ancient times. It was just that the number of quasi-emperors in this era was much less than the number of emperors in ancient times, so it was fine for quasi-emperors like them to call themselves emperors. But now, Chu Fengyan pointed it out in front of everyone, which felt like a slap to his face, so how could he not be angry? The way of killing gods. Slay with one sword. The great venerable lord coldly snorted and didn't intend to continue talking nonsense. He suddenly attacked, and the 8 words began to condense in front of Chu Fengyan, which then turned into a blood-red sword. This sword contained a murderous aura. It was unknown how many masters it had killed in the past. It was condensed from countless murderous auras to form a killing sword. Before the sword arrived, the murderous aura was already approaching and enveloping everyone. Everyone held their breaths. They couldn't even breathe under the murderous aura. Wherever the killing sword passed, a huge hole was torn in the space. No one could withstand the sharpness of the killing sword. Under the pressure of the murderous aura, the killing sword had already approached Chu Fengyan. You're the first quasi-emperor I've encountered after mastering this move. Then, I'll use you test it. Great Pagoda Sword Light, support. A sky-piercing sword light erupted from Chu Fengyan's body. This sky-piercing sword light directly enveloped Chu Fengyan's body, causing Chu Fengyan's realm to rise steadily. Chu Fengyan's cultivation rose from the peak of the Heaven's Mandate realm to the peak of the Sovereign realm under the support of the Great Pagoda Sword Light. This sudden change stunned the Great Venerable Lord, but after he quickly saw Chu Fengyan's cultivation, he still sneered. I thought you had some kind of trump card. Whether it's the Heaven's Mandate realm or the Sovereign realm, they're all ants. It's useless no matter how much your cultivation rises. Everyone below the Emperor realm is just an ant. The great venerable lord's words were full of disdain. Although Chu Feng Mian's strength had skyrocketed, he was still far from a true Emperor realm master. Such strength was still nothing in the great venerable lord's eyes. Is that so? Then, why don't you take a look at this move? The corners of Chu Fengyan's mouth curled into a sneer as he indifferently spat out 3 words. Soaring Serpent Transformation. The Great Pagoda Sword Light wasn't Chu Feng Mian's trump card. He was going to use the Soaring Serpent Transformation. The last time Chu Feng Mian used the Soaring Serpent Transformation, he only dealt with those from the Wasteland Alliance, especially Shueshun. Although his strength had reached the level of a quasi-emperor, he wasn't a true quasi-emperor. Chu Feng Mian originally planned to fight with a quasi-emperor to test the power of the Soaring Serpent Transformation. But now, someone had delivered himself to his doorstep. Roar! An ancient bestial roar came from behind Chu Fengyan. This bestial roar was so ancient that even the Great Supremacy couldn't tell where it came from. Only Chu Feng Mian knew that this was the roar of the Soaring Serpent, an innate divine beast, the roar of the Earth God. At the same time, an illusory figure suddenly condensed behind Chu Fengyan. This illusory figure was at least 3,000 feet tall. The Soaring Serpent Transformation was fully displayed. Chapter 1107. Chu Fengyan's strength was thousands of times stronger than an ordinary Heavenly Fate realm expert. In terms of strength alone, he was dozens of times stronger than old Ancestor Wu. Under the support of the Soaring Serpent Transformation, Chu Fengyan's strength increased by 100-fold. He wasn't any weaker than a quasi-emperor. He might even be stronger than a true quasi-emperor. Under the support of the Soaring Serpent Transformation, Chu Fengyan's strength didn't just increase. His divine veins had also expanded by dozens of times. The Soaring Serpent was a connate god beast that represented the earth. Chu Fengyan's god meridians were connected to the underground dragon veins. With the blessing of the Soaring Serpent, the dragon veins in the imperial capital were now under his control. At this moment, even if a quasi-emperor was standing in front of Chu Fengyan wouldn't feel the slightest bit of fear. A quasi-emperor wants to show off in front of me? You're just a mere quasi-emperor. If a true sovereign came, I would be afraid. Unfortunately, you're just a quasi-emperor. You want me to be your slave? Then I'll subdue you today. I've never had a quasi-emperor as a servant. What killing sword? Break for me. Chu Fengyan transformed into the Soaring Serpent Transformation and struck out with his palm. The spiritual energy contained in his palm was even thicker than the earth. The sharpness of the blood sword couldn't even be shaken by Chu Fengyan's palm. Then, Chu Fengyan's palm shattered it on the spot. Then, Chu Fengyan's palm broke through the void and blasted towards the great honorable lord. What kind of secret technique is this? Increasing the strength of a quasi-emperor? How is this possible? No secret technique can do this. Even the secret techniques of the 8 great imperial clans can't do this. The great honorable lord was shocked. He also felt that Chu Fengyan's strength was no different from a quasi-emperor's. This was simply unbelievable. Even the strongest secret technique could only increase the strength by 10 times. The difference between a quasi-emperor and an immortal realm expert was more than 10 times. It was more than 100 times. Therefore, even if a supreme ancestor of the immortal realm went all out and used a secret technique, he would not be able to reach 1/10 of the power of an emperor-to-be. That was why there was such a saying. Everyone below the venerable sovereign realm was like an ant. However, he would never have thought that Chu Fengyan's original strength was already 10 times stronger than Ancestor Wu's. Now, with the addition of the Soaring Snake Transformation, Chu Fengyan's strength had increased by 10 times in a short period of time. With his current strength, not to mention that he was comparable to a quasi-emperor, even any quasi-emperor would not be able to compete with Chu Fengyan in terms of pure strength. Old man, weren't you very arrogant just now? Now, let's see how you're going to suppress me and extract my bloodline. Chu Fengmian looked at the great, exalted lord and snorted coldly. In the blink of an eye, countless fist winds blasted towards the great, exalted lord. Every fist wind was a secret technique of the Battle Dragon clan. It was unknown how many times more profound they were than the current Dragon clan's martial skills. Chu Fengmian possessed 100,000 drops of ancient Battle Dragon blood essence. It could be said that half of his bloodline was the ancient Battle Dragon bloodline. These secret techniques of the ancient Battle Dragon bloodline were all recorded in Chu Fengmian's mind. Especially when Chu Fengmian wanted to use them, it was simply a piece of cake. He did not need any practice. He could use them with a wave of his hand. Damn it! Damn it! The great exalted lord was furious when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. As a quasi-emperor, being scolded by a little guy like Chu Fengmian was simply infuriating him. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength was comparable to a true Emperor Realm expert. Thus, the great exalted lord could not afford to be distracted. In particular, Chu Fengmian's martial skills were the most mysterious of the dragon race's secret techniques. Now, even the great venerable lord had some doubts in his heart. Was he really the son of the dragon god emperor? He actually knew so many secret techniques of the dragon race. If it wasn't for the fact that the dragon god emperor had no descendants, he would have suspected that Chu Fengmian was the illegitimate son of the dragon god emperor. Kid, don't be so arrogant. You're just relying on the strength of the secret techniques. Let's see how long you can last. The great exalted lord roared furiously. Tao of the slaying god descends. Heaven and earth, slaying god. Boom! A slaying god shadow condensed behind the great exalted lord's back. The slaying god shadow then merged with the great exalted lord's body. It seemed like the great exalted lord was both himself and the slaying god. Boundless blood sea. With a wave of his hand, a murderous intent burst out from his body. The murderous intent turned into a sea of blood, filled with boundless murderous intent. It swept toward Chu Fengmian, covering the sky and covering the earth. The ancient slaying god is just a divine spirit. It's incomparable to a true, innate divine beast. Even the slaying god will be torn apart in front of the soaring serpent. Heaven-tearing claw. A dragon claw suddenly condensed in front of Chu Fengmian. The 1,000 arrays on the dragon scales were activated. The moment the claw struck forward, the sea of blood and murderous aura were torn apart by the heaven-tearing claw. It could even tear apart the sky, let alone the sea of blood. Chu Fengmian didn't stop there. The moment the heaven-tearing claw tore apart the sea of blood, it changed its direction and clawed towards the great exalted lord. Damn it! What kind of demonic beast is behind you? What kind of secret technique can make this person's strength reach such a shocking level? If it wasn't for this secret technique, you're just an ant. The great exalted lord roared as he saw the sea of blood being torn apart. The reason why Chu Fengmian could stand on equal footing with him was because of this secret technique. If it wasn't for this secret technique, 10,000 Chu Fengmians would have died in his hands. You talk too much. You only need to know that you're just an ant in front of me. Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard the great, exalted lord's words. What secret technique? The soaring serpent bloodline was an opportunity that Chu Fengmian had obtained through untold hardships. Of course, it was his strength. The soaring serpent transformation lasted for less than half of a minute. Chu Fengmian was confident that he could defeat the great exalted lord. This represented Chu Fengmian's strength. No matter where one was, strength was respected. It was the same no matter how one obtained his strength. Tear! Chu Fengmian roared, and the power of the heaven-tearing claw increased. The golden dragon claw swept across. Chapter 1108. Is this still a monarch? A monarch who can contend with quasi-emperors? This is too terrifying. Since when did such a demonic genius appear in the ancient fiend continent? I heard that many of the geniuses of the 8 royal clans can contend with quasi-emperors while in the immortal realm. However, they can barely do so, unable to reach this step. Since when did such a person appear in the ancient Snake Empire? Even in the Divine Dragon Empire, I have never heard of such a genius. The ancient snake merchant association's disciples normally interacted with countless major characters. They knew far more than ordinary people. Martial emperors were like ants. However, there were still people below quasi-emperor who could contend with quasi-emperors. Some of the geniuses of the 8 royal clans were rumored to be able to do so. The 8 royal clans had noble bloodlines, and they were dozens of times stronger than cultivators of the same cultivation. Furthermore, with their secret techniques, they could contend with quasi-emperors for a short time. However, they could only contend with quasi-emperors. In other words, they could exchange a few moves with quasi-emperors. As for whether the quasi-emperors were serious or not, that was another matter. How could Chu Fengyan before them be contending with quasi-emperors? He was suppressing quasi-emperors. What kind of trouble did I provoke for the ancient snake merchant association? Mahogany knelt on the ground. Right now, his intestines were green with regret. If he had stood on Chu Fengyan's side at the start, young Master Lei would have hated him. However, this hatred would have only caused his relationship with the Lei clan to turn cold. It would not have hurt him deeply. To Mahogany, this was just a matter of face. At that time, if he had managed to rope in Chu Fengyan, it would be no different from roping in a quasi-emperor. If a quasi-emperor was willing to join the ancient snake merchant association, that quasi-emperor would definitely hold a high position in the ancient snake merchant association. Not to mention the ancient snake merchant association, any faction would want to rope in a quasi-emperor. Although the ancient snake merchant association might not be able to rope in a quasi-emperor, it would at least be enough to form a good relationship with Chu Fengyan. Establishing a good relationship with a quasi-emperor was a great thing. However, Mahogany had ruined all of this. Mahogany could never have imagined that Chu Fengyan possessed the strength of a quasi-emperor. This surpassed everyone's understanding. The same was true for the 3 consecrators kneeling on the ground. If they knew that Chu Fengyan had such strength, they would have agreed to Chu Fengyan's request. At this point, they could only look at the great sovereign with anticipation. As long as the great sovereign was able to suppress Chu Fengyan, today's matter would be resolved easily. But now, the one being chased was the great exalted. The great supremacy's figure shuttled back and forth in the ancient snake merchant association's territory, while a golden dragon claw was chasing after him. Still trying to stall for time? Chu Fengyan looked at the great exalted lord and sneered. He naturally knew what the great exalted lord was thinking. No matter what secret technique it wouldn't last for long. Half a minute, 1 minute, 2 minutes at most, it would dissipate. After all, forcing one's body to withstand dozens of times the power would cause immense damage to one's body every minute and every second. It wouldn't last for too long. As long as Chu Fengyan wasn't strengthened by the soaring serpent transformation, the great exalted lord could easily defeat him with a wave of his hand. Of course, Chu Fengyan knew what the great exalted lord was thinking, so he naturally wouldn't let him have his way. There were still 20 seconds left for the soaring serpent transformation, but Chu Fengyan didn't want to delay any longer. Tianlong transformation. Another aura erupted from Chu Fengyan's back. This aura wasn't any weaker than the soaring serpent shadow behind Chu Fengyan. This time around, it was a dragon. It was the most ancient dragon, the first dragon in the world, the ancestor of all dragons, the primogenitor sky dragon. SSS. The moment the ancestral heavenly dragon appeared, the entire place fell silent. The faces of the ancient snake merchant association's disciples were filled with despair. They were able to sense that the power of the primordial celestial dragon was not inferior to the soaring serpent from before. Chu Fengyan's secret technique hadn't ended yet, but he could still use it a second time? No, it's impossible. How can you use 2 secret techniques at the same time? The power of these 2 secret techniques is completely different. It should be enough to make your body explode. Even a quasi-emperor can't do it. How can you do it? The great exalted lord roared crazily as he dodged. A quasi-emperor can't do it, but it doesn't mean that I can't do it. Stop hiding. Tianlong's secret technique, heaven and earth seal. Chu Fengyan roared. Behind him, Tianlong also roared at the same time. As they roared, the surrounding space started to solidify. Heaven and Earth Seal. The Xiantian power represented by Tianlong was the power of space. Chu Fengmian could use this power to tear the space apart. He could also use this power to seal the space. Originally, Chu Fengmian had been using Tianlong transformation continuously. However, the Great Exalted Lord's speed was too troublesome. A quasi-emperor's strength wasn't only reflected in the aspect of strength. The Great Exalted Lord's speed, body, and vitality were 100 times stronger than old Ancestor Wu. Chu Fengmian couldn't catch him in a short time. Chu Fengmian naturally didn't want to delay any longer. It would be difficult to deal with the Great Exalted Lord if the Soaring Serpent transformation ended. Without the power of the Soaring Serpent transformation, Chu Fengmian's strength would be inferior to that of a quasi-emperor. It would be very difficult for him to fight across this gap. Chu Fengmian used Tianlong transformation to make a prompt decision. He didn't want to give the Great Exalted Lord any chance. The space around him solidified. This space was even harder than a spiritual weapon. The Great Exalted Lord couldn't break the space around him even though he used countless secret techniques. Tear! Seizing the opportunity, Chu Fengmian slashed his claw towards the Great Exalted Lord. The Great Exalted Lord's body was strengthened by the Slaughter God's shadow, and the Slaughter God's shadow was torn in half. At the same time, the Great Exalted Lord's spiritual energy rapidly weakened. His strength had fallen to the weakest point. Kill! Chu Fengmian didn't want to give the Great Exalted Lord any chance to breathe. Since the Great Exalted Lord used a killing move to deal with Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't be lenient. Another battle dragon claw condensed and aimed at the Great Exalted Lord. Young Master Chu, please be lenient. My servant is ignorant. Young Master Chu, you don't have to be so angry. Rumble. All of a sudden, an arm stretched out from the void. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but feel astonished. The space around him was sealed by Tianlong's power. How could it be broken by someone? Chapter 1109. An expert. Every hair on Chu Fengmian's body stood on end. He spread out his spiritual sense to observe every movement in the surroundings. This mysterious expert was able to break the seal of Tianlong transformation. This meant that this person was much stronger than the great sovereign. A quasi-emperor? Or was he a true emperor? I thought that the ancient snake chamber of commerce only had the great sovereign and a quasi-emperor, which was enough to suppress everything. How could there be another expert? Chu Fengmian wasn't nervous. He didn't need to think to know that this person was an expert of the ancient snake chamber of commerce. Now that Chu Fengmian had made a mess of the ancient snake chamber of commerce, this person was probably an enemy to him. Young Master Chu, you don't need to be so nervous. This old man already knows about what happened today. It's just a misunderstanding. The ancient snake chamber of commerce has always valued peace when doing business. This misunderstanding has been resolved, so it's nothing. Young Master Chu, please let go of the great sovereign first. The mysterious voice sounded again. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and frowned, but he still let go of the great sovereign. Now that this mysterious powerhouse had appeared, it was obviously unrealistic for Chu Fengmian to kill the great supremacy in front of him. However, Chu Fengmian was careful and secretly planted a fire seed in the great sovereign's body. It was a fire seed condensed from pure, young, heavenly fire. Pure, young, heavenly fire wasn't a flame that could be controlled by humans. Only those with innate fire-attributed divine bodies could control it. Chu Fengmian could control it at any time after condensing the divine body of ice and fire. As long as Chu Fengmian willed it, the fire seed would erupt. Even if the great sovereign was a quasi-emperor, he would still be burned to ashes by the pure, young, heavenly fire. Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of the ancient snake chamber of commerce causing trouble. Young Master Chu is indeed a smart person. The mysterious voice spoke again. From the tone of this voice, there was a hint of relief. It seemed that the fish dyeing break was not what he wanted. At the same time, a middle-aged man slowly walked out from beside the great sovereign. When Chu Fengmian let go of the great sovereign, he also withdrew the power of Tianlong transformation and soaring snake transformation. Chu Fengmian couldn't waste these two powers. They were his best trump cards against a quasi-emperor. so he had to keep them. "Who are you?" Chu Fengmian glanced at the middle-aged man. His eyes revealed some pressure. Chu Fengmian could tell that this man was still a quasi-emperor and had yet to become a true sovereign. However, his strength was completely different from a quasi-emperor like the Great Supremacy. Humans were divided into different grades, and so were quasi-emperors. For example, the heavenly demon Supremacy had just become a quasi-emperor and was considered the weakest among quasi-emperors. The great exalted lord should be of the same level as the Hua clan's first elder that Chu Fengmian fought before, both being small perfection quasi-emperors. After that, there were great perfection quasi-emperors and peak quasi-emperors. Everyone's cultivation was the same. Small perfection, great perfection, and peak quasi-emperors were still differentiated by strength. This middle-aged man before Chu Fengmian probably surpassed great perfection, reaching the level of a peak quasi-emperor. That was why Chu Fengmian felt such immense pressure. This person was someone who was truly close to becoming a sovereign. He was just one step away from becoming a quasi-emperor and becoming a true sovereign. This person would be even more difficult to deal with than 10 great supremacies. Right now, Chu Fengmian was secretly accumulating spiritual energy. As long as he felt that something was wrong, he would erupt with his full strength and immediately flee. As long as he left the ancient Snake Merchant Association, even if he changed his identity, a true sovereign would not be able to find him. "President, greetings, President." Before that middle-aged man could speak, the ancient Snake Merchant Association's flute disciples all knelt on the ground and greeted him respectfully when they saw him. Even the Great Supremacy was no exception. Although he did not kneel, he was also extremely respectful. The ancient Snake Merchant Association's president? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He had already guessed the answer. For such a person to have a superior status to the Great Supremacy, he could only be the ancient Snake Merchant Association's president. The ancient Snake Merchant Association's president was rumored to be a mysterious person. Today, he suddenly appeared. Could it be that this matter had blown up, and this person had no choice but to appear? However, it made sense. Chu Fengmian had almost killed the Great Supremacy just now. If the ancient Snake Merchant Association's president did not act, it would really be a disaster. The fall of a boundary emperor was enough to shake the entire ancient snake empire. The ancient Snake Merchant Association's president, Ouyang Li, the middle-aged man, Ouyang Li said, "President Ouyang, this person is too much. He injured the ancient Snake Merchant Association's disciples and even forced us to kneel. This is a great humiliation. President Ouyang, please uphold justice." Young Master Lei, who was kneeling on the ground, shouted loudly when he saw Ouyang Li. It was as if he had found his savior. He hated Chu Fengmian to the core. Now that Ouyang Li was here, it would be easy for him to kill Chu Fengmian. In the imperial city, except for the mysterious ancient snake emperor, even the 8 great sovereign families quasi-emperors might not be Ouyang Li's match. We'll talk about young Master Lei later. Men, take young Master Lei away. Ouyang Li didn't even look at young Master Lei. He just ordered the men beside him. 2 old ancestors of the ancient Snake Merchant Association stepped forward and took young Master Lei away. Young Master Lei wanted to say something, but he shut his mouth when he saw Ouyang Li's cold eyes. He dared to be arrogant in front of Rosewood, the vice president, and even the great reverend. However, he didn't dare to do the same in front of Ouyang Li. This was strength. All arrogance had to be restrained in front of an absolute expert. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered when he saw this. What was this Ouyang Li planning? It seemed like he didn't intend to continue the battle today. If not, he would have directly attacked Chu Fengmian in front of young Master Lei. He could have used this opportunity to gain the favor of the Lei clan. Now that everyone has left, it's time to settle the grudge between you and the ancient Snake Merchant Association. This isn't a grudge, it's just a small misunderstanding. This is a blood crystal. It's 10 times purer than a bloodstone. I heard that young Master Chu needs a bloodstone, so I'll give it to you as compensation. Ouyang Li suddenly flipped his hand, and a blood-red crystal appeared in his palm. He then handed it to Chu Fengmian. Chapter 11:10. Today's conflict was caused by the servants. You all, go. and apologized to young Master Chu. After handing over the blood crystal, Ouyang Li looked at the great exalted lord, the three consecrators, and the vice president of Ghost God Sect. Hearing the word apologize, their eyes were filled with anger, but they didn't dare to disobey Ouyang Li's order. They could only walk towards Chu Fengyan. Forget it. There's no need for an apology. I'll take this blood crystal, Chu Fengyan said casually. The great exalted lord, the three consecrators, and the ghost god vice president were all itching to kill Chu Fengyan. Their hatred for Chu Fengyan seeped into their bones. Their apology was meaningless. However, this blood crystal was of great use to Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan knew a little about this blood crystal from Lei Yan's memories. The blood crystal was even purer than the bloodstone. It was also produced in the blood world, but it was in the heart of the blood world, where it was even more dangerous. Even Lei Yan didn't dare to go to the blood world. He only dared to look for bloodstones outside. A blood crystal was 1,000 times more valuable than a bloodstone. If Chu Fengyan wanted to buy this blood crystal, it would cost him 50 billion supreme grade spirit stones, and that was under the condition that the ancient snake merchant guild was willing to sell it. A treasure like the blood crystal could be sold to any power, and it would be enough to establish a good relationship with that power. Now, he had actually given it to Chu Fengyan. Regardless of Ouyang Li's intentions, Chu Fengyan took it away. What he needed most now was to increase his cultivation. No matter what Ouyang Li was planning, as long as Chu Fengyan was strong enough, all his schemes would be meaningless. Chu Fengyan could defeat the great exalted lord with the strength of the soaring serpent transformation and the Tianlong transformation. If he stepped into the Empyrean realm, he might have a chance to fight against Ouyang Li. I can see Vice President Ouyang's sincerity. Tell me, how do you want to resolve today's matter? Chu Fengyan pulled a chair and sat down. After a series of battles, Chu Fengyan needed to rest. Although he had unlimited spiritual energy with his divine veins, his mind was still tired. Today's matter is our ancient snake merchant guild's fault. Young Master Chu, don't you need bloodstones? Our ancient snake merchant association has a total of 70,000 bloodstones. Why don't we sell them all to Mr. Chu? Ouyang Li glanced at Chu Fengyan and said, at the same time, our ancient snake trading company also plans to do business with young Master Chu. Doesn't young Master Chu also want information about the world of fresh blood? The ancient snake chamber of commerce also has some secrets related to the world of fresh blood. If young Master Chu needs it, we can make a deal. Oh, hearing Ouyang Li's words, Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed with a strange light. Ouyang Li's conditions were so profound that it was beyond Chu Fengyan's expectation. However, these 70,000 bloodstones were of great use to Chu Fengyan. It wasn't easy to obtain a large number of bloodstones in the world of blood. If possible, Chu Fengyan wanted to collect enough bloodstones from the outside. Sure, I'll buy all 70,000 bloodstones. Chu Fengyan nodded and waved his hand, causing a river of spirit stones to appear. All of them were sagely grade spirit stones, and they flew toward Ouyang Li. 50 million top-grade spirit stones for one bloodstone. I'll take all of them. Ouyang Li didn't refuse these spirit stones. He moved in the air and collected all the bloodstones. As for the rest of the deal, all of a sudden, Ouyang Li waved his spiritual energy in the air. The surrounding room started to spin, and in an instant, they arrived at another secret chamber. President Ouyang, what kind of deal do you want to make? I need a large number of bloodstones. If you have more bloodstones, I can buy them with money. Chu Fengyan sized up the surroundings of the secret chamber. After confirming that there was no danger nearby, he looked at Ouyang Li and slowly opened his mouth. Of course, if you have higher grade blood crystals, I can still buy them. Spirit stones won't be a problem. Chu Fengyan needed a large number of bloodstones. Not to mention 50 million each. He could buy them even if they were 100 million each. The wealth Chu Fengyan could gather every day was more than 100 billion. However, Chu Fengyan didn't know what Ouyang Li was planning to do. If I'm not wrong, young Master Chu wants to buy so much information about the bloody world because you want to go there personally. Ouyang Li didn't answer Chu Fengyan's question. Instead, he suddenly said. That's right. Chu Fengmian nodded and didn't hide anything. He bought so much information about the bloody world. There was no need to guess his purpose. It was obvious at a glance. There was no point in hiding it, so it was better to say it openly. I wonder if young Master Chu has heard about the treasured land of the bloody world? Ouyang Li asked again. Treasured land? Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly changed as he said coldly. Your ancient snake chamber of commerce knows about the treasured land of the bloody world? Chu Fengmian had heard about the treasured land from Lei Yan's memory. The bloody world was a huge world. It could be said that it was bigger than the wasteland. It wasn't difficult to find bloodstones when they were scattered. However, it was like finding a needle in a haystack to find a large amount of bloodstones. However, there were some places in the bloody world that were able to produce large amounts of bloodstones due to some special reasons. This kind of place was known as a treasure ground. Not only could one obtain a large amount of bloodstones in a treasure ground, but one could also obtain blood crystals. However, these treasured lands were distributed in different places in the bloody world. Moreover, they were extremely rare. Generally speaking, it was almost impossible to find a treasured land. One could only rely on luck. Chu Fengmian entered the bloody world to try his luck. He wanted to see if he could find a few treasured lands to obtain large amounts of bloodstones. According to Ouyang Li's words, the ancient snake chamber of commerce knew about the existence of a treasured land? That's right. Our ancient snake chamber of commerce has received information about a treasured land. Moreover, other than our ancient snake chamber of commerce, no other forces know about the treasured land. The blood crystal that I gave to young Master Chu was produced in this treasured land. How much wealth does it cost to obtain information about this treasured land? Chu Fengmian asked directly. Chapter 1111. A treasure ground would contain at least a few thousand bloodstones. Moreover, a treasure ground that could produce blood crystals was considered huge in the treasure ground. The treasure grounds in the bloody world were divided into 4 grades. The 4th grade was the highest, and the treasure ground that could produce blood crystals was at least of the 2nd grade. There would be at least tens of thousands of bloodstones. Finding this treasure ground would yield a large amount of bloodstones. In addition to the 70,000 bloodstones that Chu Fengmian bought from the ancient snake chamber of commerce, Chu Fengmian could improve his bloodline and break through to the celestial realm. The news of this treasure ground was extremely important to Chu Fengmian. Our ancient snake chamber of commerce will not sell the news of this treasure ground. Ouyang Li suddenly kept Chu Fengmian in suspense. This time, this old man wants to make a deal with young Master Chu. A deal? Chu Fengmian frowned. If he could directly use his wealth to buy the news of this treasure ground, it would be the best choice for Chu Fengmian. However, it didn't seem that simple now. However, this was a treasure land after all. It represented an almost endless stream of wealth. The bloodstones in the treasure land could not be extracted all at once. One only needed to wait for 10 or 20 years for the treasure land to produce new bloodstones. Therefore, a treasure ground was almost priceless. Even if Chu Fengmian was willing to pay a high price for it, the ancient snake chamber of commerce might not be willing to sell it. What deal? Our ancient snake chamber of commerce is willing to tell young Master Chu the news of this treasure ground for free. Ouyang Li slowly said. However, there is a condition. Young Master Chu must give half of the bloodstones that you obtain in the treasure ground to the ancient snake chamber of commerce. So simple. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but ask. This condition was simply too simple. Only half. Most likely, other warriors would be willing to take 10%. After all, as long as they reached a treasure land, it would not be difficult to obtain thousands of bloodstones. Even if it was half, it would be a great profit. One should know that most cultivators wouldn't be able to obtain so many bloodstones after entering the bloody world once. Lei Yan, for example, risked his life to obtain less than 1,000 bloodstones. Of course, this treasure ground isn't as peaceful as it looks. It's an unexplored treasure ground. Ouyang Li smiled when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. In this treasure land, there's a group of blood snakes unique to the world of fresh blood. They are not easy to deal with, so we plan to ask young Master Chu to deal with this group of blood snakes. Blood snakes, hearing this, Chu Fengmian understood a little. Chu Fengmian knew that due to the unique environment of the blood world, some strange demonic beasts were born. The blood snake was one of them. Moreover, the blood snake clan was extremely difficult to deal with among the demonic beasts in the blood world. This was because the blood snake clan lived in groups. There might be thousands or even tens of thousands of blood snakes in a group. Even ants could kill an elephant. Moreover, the weakest blood snake was at the life and death realm. There were many blood snakes that had stepped onto the life and death steps and became old ancestors. There were even rumors that there were quasi-emperor blood snakes in the blood world. When ordinary martial artists enter the world of blood, they would take a detour if they encountered the blood snake clan. It was no wonder that Ouyang Li had offered such generous conditions. This treasure ground was actually occupied by the blood serpent tribe. In order to obtain the bloodstones, one must first eliminate the blood serpent tribe. What level is the leader of the blood serpent tribe? Chu Fengmian asked cautiously. This blood serpent tribe was definitely not weak. Otherwise, the ancient Snake Merchant Association would have eliminated the blood serpent tribe themselves. At that time, the wealth of this treasure ground would belong to them. Why would they let Chu Fengmian take advantage of it? Evidently, this blood serpent tribe was extremely troublesome for the ancient Snake Merchant Association. It was a hot potato, which was why Chu Fengmian was sent to deal with it. Quasi-Emperor. The leader of this blood serpent tribe has the strength of an early quasi-emperor. Ouyang Li replied, a quasi-emperor blood serpent tribe leader? This is a huge blood serpent tribe. Could it be that President Ouyang wants me to deal with tens of thousands of blood serpents alone? Hearing Ouyang Li's words, Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sneer. Sure enough, this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. The quasi-emperor blood serpent tribe leader was a quasi-emperor. Even if he had just entered the quasi-emperor realm, Chu Fengmian would still have to use his full strength to deal with him. This was especially true in the blood world, where existences like the blood serpent tribe had a unique advantage. If the great sovereign lord were to deal with the leader of the blood serpent tribe who had just entered the quasi-emperor realm, he would only have a 50% chance of winning. Moreover, apart from the leader of the blood serpent tribe, the tens of thousands of blood serpents under his command were also a big problem. If they joined forces, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to barge in alone. Chu Fengmian would most likely become a meal for the blood serpent tribe before he could obtain the bloodstones. Young Master Chu, don't worry. Of course, you won't be dealing with the blood serpent tribe alone. You only need to deal with the leader of the ancient snake tribe. As for the others, the ancient Snake Merchant Association has recently recruited many demon gods. We only lack a commander. Young Master Chu can go with them. You only need to deal with the leader of the blood serpent tribe. As for the others, they will naturally help you deal with them. Ouyang Li said, Young Master Chu, since you've killed the leader of the blood serpent tribe, we can raise the conditions again. We'll give you 10% more, and the ancient Snake Merchant Association will only ask for 40% of the bloodstones you obtained in the treasure ground. What do you think? Ouyang Li hurriedly said, as if he was afraid that Chu Fengmian wouldn't agree. All right, I agree. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and immediately agreed. It wasn't impossible for Chu Fengmian to kill the leader of the blood serpent tribe who had just entered the quasi-emperor realm. The most important thing was Ouyang Li's condition. 60% bloodstones was definitely a huge amount of wealth. Moreover, the blood serpent tribe usually occupied a place where there were treasures of heaven and earth. There were obviously other hidden treasures in this treasure ground, which was why the blood serpent tribe had entrenched themselves there. All the treasures of heaven and earth gathered in the blood world were similar to the bloodstones. They could enhance one's bloodline and were of great use to Chu Fengmian. He had to obtain them no matter what. All right, young Master Chu is straightforward. Here's the information about the treasure ground. Ouyang Li laughed when he saw Chu Fengmian agree. At the same time, he pointed his finger and a jade talisman flew over. Chapter 11:12. This land of treasures was actually at the edge of the world of blood, which saved him a lot of trouble. Chu Fengmian took a look and found that this land of treasures was actually at the edge of the world of blood. This was a small piece of news for him. Generally, land of treasures was gathered at the heart of the world of blood. Therefore, Most warriors who entered would choose to go to the heart of the world of blood to obtain large amounts of bloodstones. The possibility of encountering other warriors at the edge would be much lower, and the news would not be leaked. Here are 70,000 bloodstones. Young Master Chu, you can check them. Ouyang moved his palm, and an empty ring flew towards Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan opened the empty ring and saw that it was densely packed with bloodstones. There were a total of 70,000 bloodstones, not one less. Okay. Chu Fengyan saw these bloodstones and immediately wanted to refine them, but he quickly suppressed his excitement. Although refining these 70,000 bloodstones was enough to increase Chu Fengyan's strength, it was not enough to transform his strength completely. Therefore, Chu Fengyan kept these bloodstones for now. He needed to gather at least 100,000 bloodstones and devour them together to upgrade his bloodline and break through to the next realm. Only then would Chu Fengyan truly be reborn. Young Master Chu, when do you plan to depart? The warriors and demon immortals recruited by our ancient snake chamber of commerce are already waiting and can depart at any time. Ouyang looked at Chu Fengyan and asked, "No need to wait, let's depart now." Chu Fengyan said directly. He would not be able to refine these 70,000 bloodstones in a short time. It would be better to go to the world of blood and find more bloodstones to devour in one go to upgrade his bloodline and break through to the next realm. After encountering Ouyang, Chu Fengyan became more nervous. Even if he used the power of the Soaring Serpent transformation and Tianlong transformation, he would not be able to defeat Ouyang. He would have to pay a great price to escape from Ouyang's hands. Originally, Chu Fengyan thought that even if he could not defeat a quasi-emperor, he would at least be able to escape unscathed. However, after encountering Ouyang, Chu Fengyan was clear. The quasi-emperor realm was still huge. Ouyang's strength was more terrifying than 10 great exalted lords. Moreover, Chu Fengyan could easily defeat a great exalted. Great exalted was careless and did not put Chu Fengyan. Otherwise, even if Chu Fengyan could defeat the great exalted lord, he would need to use more means and time. A quasi-emperor was not that easy to defeat. Even the current Chu Fengyan might not be able to kill the great exalted lord. Killing a quasi-emperor was much more difficult than defeating one. After all, the fight between Chu Fengyan and the great exalted lord was just a battle of pride and not a true battle to the death. Of life and death. Of life. But now that Chu Fengyan had used up all his trump cards, he still wasn't a match for Ouyang. At the very least, Chu Fengyan needed to upgrade his bloodline and break through to the Empyrean realm. Only then could he truly contend with Ouyang. Ouyang waved his hand and opened a teleportation array in front of Chu Fengyan. Young Master Chu, please follow me. Ouyang took the lead and stepped into the teleportation array. Chu Fengyan followed closely behind. Chu Fengyan felt that he had crossed a large area and arrived at a unique place in the imperial capital. After leaving the teleportation array, the smell of blood assaulted his senses. Chu Fengyan opened his eyes and saw a 100-meter-tall spatial crack in front of him. The smell of blood was coming from the spatial crack. Seems like this is the entrance to the world of blood. Chu Fengyan could no longer tell how many types of blood essence had fused together. Every year, more than 10 million cultivators died in the world of blood. The blood essence of these cultivators would become a part of the world of blood. Therefore, it was impossible to tell who the blood essence belonged to. 5 cultivators stood in front of the spatial crack. They seemed to be waiting for something. They were chatting while waiting. The 5 cultivators were all old ancestors of the immortal realm. They hadn't just broken through. They were at least at the level of the vice president of Redwood and the vice president of Ghost Deity. Their bodies also contained a murderous aura. It was unknown just how many living beings they had killed in the past. Just this murderous aura alone was enough to make people back off just by looking at it. They stopped talking when they saw Ouyang coming out. They walked over to him. President Ouyang, how long do we have to wait? Among the 5, the oldest man with a scar on his face, who looked to be in his 40s, stepped forward and asked hurriedly, We've been waiting for a few days. If we don't depart now, I'm afraid that the treasured land will be discovered by others. Don't worry, old ancestor Wang Dao. The last person for this trip has been chosen. Ouyang Li's face was calm. He looked at Chu Fengyan beside him and said, Young Master Chu Fengyan is the last person on this trip. Young Master Chu will be the leader of this expedition. He will go with you. Huh? This brat is the last person? Old ancestor Wang Dao glanced at Chu Fengyan. His eyes suddenly turned cold when he saw Chu Fengyan's cultivation. We've waited for so long for a brat in the Fate Realm. President Ouyang, although we don't know where this brat came from, you should take him with you. A brat in the Fate Realm is going to die in a world of fresh blood. He'll even be a hindrance. That's right. Let's not talk about taking him with us. How can a brat in the Fate Realm be our leader? He's just a brat in the Fate Realm. What right does he have? A middle-aged man standing next to him also said, We agree that Brother Wang is the leader. However, it's impossible to let this brat in the Fate Realm ride on our heads. If President Ouyang insists on having his way, we, the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber, will not accept this mission. Another supreme old ancestor said coldly. Chapter 11:13. Although the remaining 2 patriarchs did not say anything, their eyes had already expressed their attitude. They were supreme ancestors of the Neverwither realm. Naturally, none of them were willing to be overshadowed by a Destiny Realm brat. Young Master Chu, these 5 supreme ancestors are called the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber. They are Ancestor Wang Dao, Ancestor Forging Saber, Ancestor Piercing Saber, Ancestor Annihilating Saber, and Ancestor Floating Saber. Although they are not from the major sects, they are all saber cultivators. They grew up together and are all unruly people. You will have to take action if you want them to work for you. Ouyang Li did not speak, but quietly transmitted his voice to Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan understood the meaning of being obedient. If he wanted to subdue these 5 supreme ancestors and use them for himself, then Chu Fengyan must show his strength. Otherwise, it would be difficult to convince them. 5 ancestors of Divine Saber? What's that? I've never heard of it. Chu Fengyan took a step forward, glanced at them, and said coldly, Since I'm a leader this time, those who are disobedient step forward. If anyone dares to be disobedient in the world of fresh blood, don't blame me for not showing mercy. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber were arrogant and unruly people. From the murderous aura around them, it was obvious that they had gone through many life and death battles to get to where they were today. If Chu Fengyan was a quasi-emperor, they would not dare to be so unruly. However, Chu Fengyan was only in the Destiny Realm. Of course, he would not be able to convince them. Anyway, if they were not convinced, Chu Fengyan would beat them into submission. Young man, how arrogant of you. We, the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber, are famous in the ancient Serpent Empire. No one has ever dared to speak to us like this. You want to be the leader? Then I'd like to see what means you have to be the leader. Ancestor Wang Dao said in exasperation when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber were so famous in the ancient Serpent Empire that even the 8 sovereign families would not dare to say that they had not heard of them. However, if they joined forces, they would be able to contend against some quasi-emperors. Therefore, even quasi-emperors would not choose to start a conflict with them. This was especially so when they were all loose cultivators. They had no ties and were ferocious. They did not fear anyone. Killing a ruler was not a big deal for them. Brother Wang is going to make his move? Just teach him a lesson. After all, President Ouyang is here. It's not good to kill him. Since he's so arrogant, give him a slap and let him reflect on himself. Of course, if he still has some strength left, we can bring him into the world of fresh blood and use him as a meat shield. The rest of the progenitors burst out laughing. Don't worry, I won't kill this kid. The patriarch of Wang Dao laughed out loud. A trace of disdain flashed across his eyes. Brat, lest you say that I'm bullying you, take 3 moves from me, and we'll let you be the leader today. What do you say? 3 moves? Chu Fengyan shook his head when he heard Wang Dao's words. 1 move is enough to defeat you. Damn it, how arrogant. The patriarch of Wang Dao roared. As a supreme progenitor, how could he tolerate Chu Fengmian's words? Suddenly, a spiritual light flashed in his hand, and a mountain-splitting saber was formed. Heaven and Earth Saber Splitter. The patriarch of Wang Dao attacked. In an instant, the saber was unsheathed, and a sharp saber light slashed at Chu Fengmian. The attack was made of pure strength without any tricks, and it was almost flawless unless it was countered by brute force. Clearly, if Chu Fengmian could not take this attack head-on, he would definitely lose. How dare you call this saber technique a divine saber? Break it. Chu Fengmian did not look at it. With a shift of his mind, the battle dragon claw formed above his head and slammed down on the saber light. The sharp saber light was shattered the moment it came in contact with the battle dragon claw. At the same time, the battle dragon claw swept out and hit the patriarch of Wang Dao's chest. Bam! Grand Ancestor Wang Dao's body was sent flying back dozens of times. When he finally stabilized himself, a claw mark could be seen on his chest. Behind the claw mark, there seemed to be some kind of soft armor. However, the soft armor was already broken and could not be worn again. It had lost its power. Brother Wang? What's going on? Brother Wang, are you okay? The other divine saber progenitors hurried over. Kid, how dare you injure Brother Wang? Kill him. Anyone who dares to injure the divine saber 5 progenitors must die. That's right, kill him. How dare he challenge the authority of the divine saber 5 progenitors? The forging saber progenitor, bayonet progenitor, and extinction saber progenitor spoke at the same time. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent as they looked at Chu Fengmian. The 3 of them attacked at the same time, and 3 saber lights slashed at Chu Fengmian. What? Want to join in? I'll fight as many as you come. Facing the 3 saber lights, Chu Fengmian did not show any signs of nervousness. Instead, he smiled faintly. With a thought, the battle dragon claw formed again above Chu Fengmian's head. If anyone dared to attack Chu Fengmian, the battle dragon claw would fall mercilessly. Everyone stop. At the moment of the clash, a sudden roar shattered the saber lights and the battle dragon claw at the same time. Chu Fengmian felt the spiritual energy in his body suddenly go berserk with this roar. What a powerful force. Just a roar, and it's already so powerful? Chu Fengmian was shocked. Although he had felt Ouyang Li's power before, this was the first time he saw him in action. Just a roar was enough to shatter the battle dragon claw. Although Chu Fengmian did not use his full strength, this roar alone was enough to defeat the 5 progenitors even if they worked together. It seems that I have to be careful when facing Ouyang Li. Otherwise, with his strength, if he sneak attacks me with lightning speed, I'll be seriously injured even if I don't die. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. At the same time, he withdrew the spiritual energy in his body. However, this was only on the surface. If Ouyang Li really intended to attack Chu Fengmian could instantly counterattack. A peak quasi-emperor at that, given his dignity, would not launch a sneak attack. However, there were exceptions to everything. Which cultivator who could become a quasi-emperor was not a vicious and merciless person. This Ouyang Li was clearly a person who hid a knife behind a smile. They had to be wary. When the 5 progenitors saw Ouyang Li attack, they put away their spiritual sabers, and the spiritual energy in their bodies gradually dissipated. After all, this was a quasi-emperor. The dignity of a quasi-emperor was not to be challenged. This is just a spar. 5 progenitors. You should have understood Master Chu's strength. Chapter 11:14. When the powerless patriarchs of the 5 divine saber patriarchs heard this, their eyes flickered and they began to think. Although they were aware of Chu Fengmian's strength, they were still unwilling to allow the 5 ancestors of the divine saber to be ordered around by someone else. We are aware of young Master Chu's strength. Please forgive us for our previous offense. Ancestor Wang Dao was the first to speak as he slowly recovered from his injuries. We are willing to follow young Master Chu's lead in this operation to the bloody world. We are willing to let young Master Chu be our leader. The other divine saber ancestors expressed their loyalty when they heard Ancestor Wang Dao's words. However, they were still unconvinced. The Divine Saber Group 5 had always worked as a team. Even if Ancestor Wang Dao was no match for Chu Fengmian, they might be able to defeat him if they worked together. After all, they were saber cultivators and had also cultivated a joint attack technique that allowed them to contend against quasi-emperors. Chu Fengmian knew that the 5 ancestors of the Divine Saber were unconvinced, but he had no intention of subduing them directly. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, a few supreme ancestors were like ants. If it weren't for the fact that he needed them to deal with the Blood Serpent tribe, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have bothered dealing with them. All right, let's get this straight. I'll kill anyone who dares to disobey my orders when we get to the Bloody World, Chu Fengmian said bluntly, completely ignoring the anger of the 5 Divine Saber Group 5. Of course, since we want young Master Chu to be our leader, of course we'll listen to young Master Chu, Ancestor Wang Dao said with a smile. He no longer looked arrogant, as if he was really obeying Chu Fengmian. Let's go then. Chu Fengmian nodded and took the lead to enter the Bloody World. Brother Wang, we're letting this kid be our leader? You may be able to tolerate this, but we can't. He's just a heavenly mandate realm kid. Why does he have to ride on our heads? Seeing Chu Fengmian enter the Blood World, Ancestor Bayonet grumbled. That's right. Even you, Brother Wang, can't let us be ordered around by a mere Destiny Realm Emperor. If you're bent on supporting that kid, don't blame us for being ruthless. I won't go into the world of fresh blood this time, the saber-forging ancestor said angrily. Usually, when those rulers saw them, which one of them was not respectful and reverent, they had never been like Chu Fengmian, who suppressed them. Recalling Chu Fengmian's words, the forefather couldn't wait to find a chance to kill him. Bayonet forging blade, when have we of the 5 forging ancestors ever submitted to anyone? The only reason I made him captain was to coax him. Otherwise, when we get to the Blood World, where will we find a scapegoat? Patriarch Wang Dao suddenly sneered. There are no dangers in the world of fresh blood. Whoever stands out will die. Doesn't this brat want to show off? Let's see how long he can be so arrogant. So Brother Wang is planning to let this brat be the scapegoat. Hearing Patriarch Wang Dao's words, the others nodded. We've been to the Blood World before and know how dangerous it is. Indeed, if we're not careful, even the 5 of us might be injured. It's Zheng who's going to be the scapegoat. But Brother Wang, is this brat really willing to be the scapegoat? What if he sends us to our deaths? The Flying Blade Ancestor, who is the calmest among them, asked. Don't worry, this brat is just a brat. He's arrogant because of his powerful bloodline. Let's not fight him and just coax him. We're not afraid that he won't stick his neck out. Patriarch Wang Dao sneered. The 5 Divine Saber ancestors had been roaming the outside world for hundreds of years. They were all shrewd people. It would not be easy for them to deal with a brat. Listen to me. Let's go in quickly so that the brat won't be suspicious. Patriarch Wang Dao took the lead and entered the Blood World, followed by the rest of the 5 Divine Saber ancestors. After the 5 Divine Saber ancestors and Chu Fengmian disappeared, a few figures suddenly appeared beside Ouyang Li. They were the Vice President of Redwood, the Vice President of Ghost Deity, the Great Master, and the others. President, is the news true? Are you really going to let this brat take advantage of this? The Great Master's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about it. The Divine Saber 5th ancestor was supposed to participate in this. They're just scapegoats. Even if they enter, they won't be able to occupy the treasure land. However, if this kid really kills the Blood Serpent leader, 60% of the treasure land's wealth will belong to him. You should know that the ancient Serpent Chamber of Commerce paid a huge price to obtain this information. Any information about a treasure land could be sold at a sky-high price. The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce had paid a great price to obtain this information. Now, they were giving it to Chu Fengmian for free and even gave him 60% of the benefits. How could the Great Master not be angry? As a quasi-emperor, he was defeated by Chu Fengmian. Now, all he wanted to do was to take revenge on Chu Fengmian. He naturally did not want Chu Fengmian to get any benefits. 60% of the wealth? Do you really think that this brat can get 60% of the wealth? I'm afraid that he won't even be able to come out of the blood world. The faint smile on Ouyang Li's face disappeared and was replaced by a gloomy expression. This brat dares to cause trouble in our ancient snake chamber of commerce. Does he really think that our ancient snake chamber of commerce is easy to bully? Look, doesn't this brat look like the person that the Hua clan and Lei clan offered a reward for? President, are you talking about the mysterious demon god of the Dragon Clan? Hearing Ouyang Li's words, the great master and the others looked at each other and thought carefully. Suddenly, their faces changed. That's right. His strength is exactly like what the Hua clan and Lei clan said. I've heard that the Hua clan and Lei clan have offered a reward for killing this brat or providing information about this brat. Should we go and inform them? The vice president of the Redwood clan said hurriedly. I've already informed the Hua clan and Lei clan. If I'm not wrong, they should be waiting for him in the blood world. Ouyang Li said with a sinister smile. I thought that he was just a brat. I didn't expect him to be such a big fish. I've already negotiated with the Hua clan and Lei clan. They only want his life. As for the rest, they will belong to our ancient snake chamber of commerce. His wealth is the same. No matter how many bloodstones he obtains, they will all belong to our ancient snake chamber of commerce. Chapter 11:15. Someone is plotting against me? Chu Fengyan felt a chill run down his spine when he stepped into the world of blood. He could tell that someone was plotting against him. Given Chu Fengyan's current strength, he could vaguely sense that someone was plotting against him. However, he didn't know who it was that wanted to harm him. After all, Chu Fengyan had too many enemies. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber and the ancient Snake Merchant Association all hated him to the core. Chu Fengyan didn't believe that they would be so magnanimous as to not care about him. Even the Hua clan and the Lei clan would spare no effort to kill Chu Fengyan if they knew that he had come to the imperial capital. Chu Fengyan had too many enemies, so he couldn't figure out who it was. But it doesn't matter. As long as I obtain the bloodstones from the treasure ground and step into the celestial realm, even a quasi-emperor won't be able to do anything to me. Even if they dare to plot against me, I'll be able to unravel all their schemes. Chu Fengyan muttered to himself. At the same time, he began to observe the world of blood in front of him. The world of blood was a small world of its own. Chu Fengyan glanced at it and saw that it was filled with blood qi. This blood qi had turned into a blood mist. Everywhere he looked was blood red, and there were constant screams from time to time. However, perhaps because this was the entrance to the world of blood, Chu Fengyan didn't see any bloodstones or traces of the fresh blood demons. It seemed that he would have to go deeper to find bloodstones. If bloodstones were so easy to obtain, they wouldn't be sold at such a shocking price. While Chu Fengyan was deep in thought, the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber had also stepped into the world of blood. They no longer looked at Chu Fengyan with hostility, as if they were really respectful to him. Young Master Chu, should we search for bloodstones first, or go straight to the treasure ground? Ancestor Wang Dao asked respectfully. Go straight to the treasure ground, Chu Fengyan said without hesitation. For Chu Fengyan, obtaining large amounts of bloodstones to upgrade his bloodline and break through to the next realm was the most important thing. Especially now that there were so many conspiracies, Chu Fengyan didn't want to waste any more time. All right, we'll follow young Master Chu's orders. Forefather Forging Saber, Ancestor Bayonet, and the others nodded in agreement. There was no point in doing so. He simply followed the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's message and flew in the direction of the treasure land. The deeper he flew into the world of blood, the thicker the blood qi in the surroundings. Chu Fengyan had already encountered a few bloodstones along the way. These bloodstones were all floating in the air. If Chu Fengyan wanted to obtain them, he could easily absorb them. However, the quality of these bloodstones wasn't very high. They were filled with impurities. It seemed that the blood qi they condensed wasn't too pure. The closer the bloodstones were to the heart of the blood world, the purer and higher the grade. But it was better than nothing. To Chu Fengyan, every single bloodstone was important. He collected more than a dozen bloodstones along the way. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber also collected a few bloodstones. Their expressions did not change much. After all, given their status, a few bloodstones were nothing to them. Roar! Just as Chu Fengmian was flying toward the treasured land, a roar suddenly rang out. A huge figure suddenly appeared in the blood mist ahead. It was a giant blood-red bull. The bull charged at Chu Fengmian. Young Master Chu, be careful. This is one of the blood beasts, the giant blood bull. Its brute force is extremely strong. Its strength is close to Ancestor Wu's level. I didn't expect to encounter such a monster as soon as we entered. It seems like there is indeed a treasured land nearby. Ancestor Wang Dao reminded from the side. Why don't you let us deal with it? After all, young Master Chu's cultivation realm is Ancestor Bayonet said from the side. What? It's just a small giant blood bowl. It's nothing. There's no need for you to deal with it. Chu Fengmian snorted. With a thought, the battle dragon claw condensed above his head and swept out. The giant blood bowl was instantly smashed into pieces, and a bloodstone flew out from its flesh. The grade of this bloodstone was clearly much higher than the ones Chu Fengmian had absorbed along the way. The bodies of blood demonic beasts were made of condensed bloodstones, which were their demonic cores. Because the blood demonic beasts had condensed these bloodstones, the quality of these bloodstones was pretty good. In order to obtain high-quality bloodstones, one had to hunt blood demonic beasts. The giant blood bowl was considered an extremely high-grade beast in the world of blood. Chu Fengmian didn't expect to encounter one as soon as he entered. There was only one explanation for this. There was a treasured land nearby. The power of a fresh blood demonic beast was based on its blood chi. Only in places with dense blood chi would there be powerful, fresh blood demonic beasts. Normally, fresh blood demonic beasts would only appear in the fresh blood world core. Only a treasured land nearby could explain the giant blood bull's appearance. Young Master Chu is very brave. We're not too far away from the treasured land. Great Ancestor Wang Dao said calmly from the side. There was even a hint of a smile in his eyes. Sure enough, he's just a brat. There are many beasts in the world of blood. If he were to encounter a group of beasts, they would cover the sky and cover the earth. Can this person deal with them? If he doesn't conserve his spiritual energy now, he'll die when he encounters a group of beasts. Great Ancestor Wang Dao sneered in his heart. In the world of blood, every bit of spiritual energy had to be conserved. After all, this place was filled with blood chi. It wasn't easy to refine the blood chi, and there was no way to replenish one's spiritual energy at will. Chu Fengmian's swaggering fighting style made him look like a newbie to them. With young Master Chu's help, this treasured land will be ours for sure. We, the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber, only ask that young Master Chu give us 10% of the bloodstones. We'll be satisfied. Great Ancestor Forging Saber said flatteringly from the side. Well said, well said. As long as you're obedient, the bloodstones won't shortchange you. Chu Fengmian said with a smile, looking very happy. However, he was sneering in his heart. Of course, Chu Fengmian knew the rules of the world of blood. However, he didn't need to conserve his spiritual energy. His divine veins could replenish his spiritual energy anywhere. In the world of blood, Chu Fengmian could also continuously extract spiritual energy to replenish his spiritual energy. Chapter 11:16. Along the way, Chu Fengmian single-handedly killed all the Blood Clan monsters he encountered. As for the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber, they were all flattering him. Although their faces were respectful, they were sneering in their hearts. Chu Fengmian went to kill monsters alone, saving all their spiritual power. In this world of blood, self-preservation had always been the most important thing. Only by surviving could one obtain the bloodstone. If Chu Fengmian squandered his spiritual power like this, he would definitely die when he ran out of spiritual power. In the world of blood, there was no safe place to restore spiritual power. If one ran out of spiritual power, not to mention dealing with monsters, even if they encountered other warriors, those warriors would not hesitate to attack and kill them directly. Battles between martial artists were the same no matter where they were. It would be much easier for a martial artist who was running out of spiritual power to kill some blood tribe monstrous beasts. Of course, the Divine Saber ancestors were aware of this. but none of them spoke out to remind Chu Fengmian. For them, it did not matter whether Chu Fengmian lived or died. They just wanted to use him. When Chu Fengmian was no longer useful, they would directly attack and kill him. Boom! The claws of the war dragon swept across, and a huge blood tiger of more than 10 meters in front of Chu Fengmian was directly torn apart and killed on the spot. Chu Fengmian moved in the air and took a bloodstone the size of a wash basin from the blood tiger's body. He then put it into the empty ring. This was the first time he had encountered a blood clan monster. Along the way, Chu Fengmian had easily killed all of them. After killing the blood tiger, Chu Fengmian's aura fluctuated as if it could no longer be stabilized. This was a sign that his spiritual power was depleted. Chu Fengmian had the holy pulse, so this kind of consumption of spiritual power could be easily recovered. However, in order to confuse the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber, Chu Fengmian deliberately showed some strain. Obviously, this kind of fighting style could not be maintained for long for Chu Fengmian. All of this was seen by the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber looked at each other, and there was a hint of mockery in their eyes. When Chu Fengmian was exhausted and no longer useful, it would be time for them to attack. However, now is not the time for that. Young Master Chu, we're not far from the treasure land. Let's hurry over. Progenitor Wang Dao came over and said all of a sudden, "Wait, let me take a break." Chu Fengmian revealed a tired expression. Just as he was about to sit down, Ancestor Bayonet and Ancestor Saber walked over. "Young Master Chu, please rest for a while. The edge of the treasure land is the most dangerous." "This is Forefather Forging Knife," Forefather Bayonet said. "Let's enter the treasure land first." "All right then." Chu Fengmian frowned, but didn't say anything. He slowly got up and urged his spiritual power again. The team of 6 turned into a beam of light and flew directly in the direction of the treasure land. In less than 5 minutes, the surrounding blood mist grew thicker and thicker. This was a sign that they were close to a treasure trove. Behind this blood mist, there seemed to be a huge figure. "Let's go. There's a treasure ahead." Great Ancestor Wang Dao said anxiously when he saw this. Their escape lights sped up, and without any hesitation, they shuttled through the blood mist and flew towards the treasure land. After passing through layers of blood mist, Chu Fengmian suddenly felt a powerful force pulling him. However, this force wasn't human, but the power of heaven and earth. Sensing that this force wasn't dangerous, Chu Fengmian didn't resist and allowed it to pull him to a certain place. Bam! Chu Fengmian's figure fell like a meteor into a desert. The desert was boundless, but the sand beneath Chu Fengmian's feet wasn't golden. Instead, it was blood red. This was a blood-red desert. Is this desert a treasure trove? Chu Fengmian observed his surroundings and felt that there seemed to be an extremely terrifying power hidden under the desert. There were also continents and mountains in the world of blood. Most of the treasure lands were hidden in such places. It seemed that the treasure land was the desert in front of Chu Fengmian. As for the bloodstones, whoosh. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's heart stirred. He activated his spiritual consciousness and searched the desert's underground. There were traces of bloodstones every few meters under the desert. It was unknown how many bloodstones were buried under the desert. At a glance, Chu Fengmian estimated that there were at least 10,000 of them. Moreover, the desert was boundless. Chu Fengmian could see a lot more from afar. These bloodstones are all under the desert. It's not difficult to obtain them. But why is my power being devoured every minute and every second here? Chu Fengmian keenly felt that his spiritual power was being devoured by a force every minute and every second. This force seemed to have shrouded the entire blood-red desert. Any living creature that entered the desert would have their power devoured. What surprised Chu Fengmian the most was that even with his spiritual consciousness, he couldn't find out where this force came from. It was mysterious. The world of blood is indeed as strange as the legends say. There must be something hidden inside. The people of the ancient Serpent Empire controlled the entrance to the world of blood, but they didn't guard it strictly. Instead, they allowed any martial artist to enter. There must be something hidden inside. One should know that if a treasure land like the World of Blood was obtained by any force, they would guard it strictly. They wouldn't allow martial artists to enter as they pleased. However, the World of Blood wasn't guarded. Anyone could enter it. Chu Fengmian didn't believe that the ancient Serpent Empire would be so kind. It could only be that they were plotting something. Forget it. I'll get the Bloodstones first and break through to the next realm. It's time for me to break through to the next realm. Chu Fengmian's realm was close to breaking through to the next realm. He could break through to the next realm at any time. However, Chu Fengmian had been suppressing his realm and didn't choose to break through. Chapter 11:17. Chu Fengmian observed the Scarlet Desert for a moment. Just as he was about to gather his spiritual energy to absorb the bloodstones beneath the Scarlet Desert, suddenly, several figures descended from the sky. These figures were none other than the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber. The moment the 5th ancestor of Divine Saber appeared, a terrifying spiritual energy suddenly erupted from Chu Fengmian's side. This spiritual energy seemed to have merged with the surrounding blood qi as it circled around Chu Fengmian's periphery. The 5 ancestors of Divine Saber stood to the side and stared coldly at Chu Fengmian. One could even see the spiritual sabers in their hands. The murderous intent in their eyes was undisguised. What are you trying to do? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. There was no need for him to think at this point. He could see clearly what they were up to. He didn't expect the 5 ancestors of Divine Saber to make their move as soon as he arrived at the treasure land. Kid, you're no longer of any use to us. We were planning to let you live a little longer, but you've already exhausted your spiritual energy. There's no point in keeping a piece of trash like you alive. Ancestor Forging Saber stood to the side. The charming smile on his face had disappeared and was replaced by a mocking smile. Kid, you have only yourself to blame for wasting so much spiritual energy outside. We didn't want to deal with you at first, but now it seems that you're useless. Ancestor Bayonet said coldly. Chu Fengmian, for the sake of our friendship along the way, I'll give you a chance today. Open up your mind and become our slave. Be the bait and lure the Blood Serpent Chieftain. Ancestor Wang Dao's eyes flickered as he looked at Chu Fengmian. As long as you survive, we'll let you live. How about it? So you're saying that you want me to throw my life away? Chu Fengmian didn't show any signs of panic. Instead, he revealed a playful smile. What if I say no? Then you'll die here. We've set up this formation to deal with the Blood Serpent Chieftain anyway. It just so happens that we're lacking a warrior's blood essence. Just obediently die in this formation and become its power. Patriarch Wang Dao laughed loudly. Since you're going to die anyway, make your choice, kid. Of course, don't even think about resisting. Even if you use all your strength, you won't be able to resist the power of this array, not to mention that you don't have much spiritual energy left. The Flying Blade Ancestor said with a hearty laugh. The way I see it, it's better to just kill this brat. I've heard that he has quite a bit of wealth on him. Killing him and obtaining his wealth would also be a great harvest. The Solitary Saber Ancestor licked his lips, his eyes filled with greed. Really? I don't know where you 5 pieces of trash get the confidence to actually dare to deal with me. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian sneered. He glanced at the Divine Blade Group 5 and laughed loudly. It is said that Ancestor Wu's essence blood is the best way to attract the Bloodsnake clan. Today, I will kill all of you and use your blood as bait. Do you think this little formation is a match for me? If I wanted to kill you, it would be like slaughtering chickens and dogs. I didn't want to kill you at first, but it's a pity that you're courting death today. Don't blame me then. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He originally wanted the Divine Blade Group 5 to deal with the Blood Snake leader with him. But since they were courting death, Chu Fengmian would fulfill their wish. Gigantic Sword Ray. Behind Chu Fengmian, a sword light suddenly shot up into the sky. Thanks to this sword light, Chu Fengmian's power rose steadily until it reached the peak of the ultimate celestial grade in an instant. This strength was something that Chu Fengmian did not show when he was outside just now. This brat still has a trump card, but it's fine. Let's attack together and kill this brat. Patriarch Wang Dao ordered without hesitation when he saw Chu Fengmian's aura rising. He took the lead and slashed at Chu Fengmian with the tip of his hand. The speed of this slash was much faster than when he was outside. Clearly, Patriarch Wang Dao had also concealed his strength when he was fighting with Chu Fengmian. Kill! This brat just used up so much of his spiritual energy. He must be exhausted by now. He's just a paper tiger. Let's attack. The remaining patriarchs, forging knife, bayonet, forging knife, and the others also attacked at the same time. 5 different styles of blade light slashed at Chu Fengmian. The power of these 5 blades was different. Although the 5 divine blade patriarchs had been working together, they cultivated different types of blades. It was difficult to guard against them when they attacked together. Brat, it's your honor to die under the blades of our 5 divine blade patriarchs. Patriarch Wang Dao smiled maliciously and channeled his spiritual energy. A huge amount of spiritual energy slashed at Chu Fengmian. I've said it before. You 5 divine blade patriarchs are just ants in my eyes. How dare you use such broken blades in front of me? Battle Dragon's Claw, sweeping heaven and earth. In an instant, a thought passed through Chu Fengmian's mind as the Battle Dragon Claw suddenly materialized. It descended from a sky and directly swept toward the 5 blades. Boom! The scarlet desert trembled under the Battle Dragon's Claw. The 5 blades were swept away in an instant, leaving no room for resistance. Chu Fengmian single-handedly shattered the joint attack of the 5 divine blade patriarchs. Such power. Is he really in the heavenly mandate realm? Can he withstand the joint attack of the 5 of us? The forging saber ancestor was shocked to see this. If the 5 divine saber ancestors joined forces, any immortal realm old ancestor would be killed instantly. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would be able to withstand their attacks? Don't worry, we've been prepared. Activate the formation, 1,000 slashes. Slash heaven and earth. Patriarch Wang Dao suddenly shouted. The remaining 4 reacted at the same time and unleashed their spiritual energy at the same time. All of their spiritual energy was injected into the formation beneath Chu Fengmian's feet. Suddenly, countless blades gathered around Chu Fengmian. There were at least 10 million blades, each with the power of 1,000 changes. The power of these blades was enough to tear the space apart. No one could stop them. Chapter 11:18. The blade alone was enough to tear everything apart. Now, the blades seemed to have fused with the surrounding blood chi. The power of the formation was enough to mobilize the blood chi of the bloody world, increasing the power of the blade by several folds. Kid, even if you have thousands of trump cards, you'll still die today. This formation was prepared for quasi-emperors. It's overkill to use it on you. However, the opportunities you have are indeed terrifying. The benefits of killing you may not be any less than killing a quasi-emperor. It's worth it. Patriarch Wang Dao said with a pained expression. The formation was originally prepared to deal with the blood serpent leader. They didn't expect to use it to deal with Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian's strength had exceeded their expectations. The fact that a mere heavenly mandate realm cultivator could unleash such terrifying power meant that Chu Fengmian's bloodline had been through countless encounters. The benefits of killing Chu Fengmian would be even greater. Godly Blade of Annihilation. Slash. Tens of thousands of blades merged into one and turned into a huge long saber. Behind the long saber was Ancestor Wang Dao. His face was ferocious as he controlled the saber to slash at Chu Fengmian. Break! Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change at all when he saw the gigantic blade coming at him. With a thought, the appearance of the Battle Dragon Claw began to change. 1,000 formations began to operate, transforming the Battle Dragon Claw into Patriarch Tianlong's appearance. Sky-tearing Claw. Rumble. As this claw soared into the sky, the massive blade was torn apart without hesitation when it came into contact with the sky-ripping claw. The aftershock of the claw created a gigantic crater in the bloody desert. The sand and stones on the surface were all crushed and disappeared, revealing the countless blood stones underground. The moment the claw was unleashed, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The power of this claw was already close to the power of the legendary ancestral sky dragon's claw. It was extremely terrifying. How can you withstand the power of this formation? This is a power that not even a quasi-emperor can break. How could you possibly do it? Old Ancestor Wang Dao shouted in disbelief when he saw Chu Fengyan break the formation with a single claw. Are you really at the heavenly mandate realm? Even the geniuses of the 8 great imperial clans can't do this. Why can't I do what a quasi-emperor can't? The geniuses of the 8 royal families aren't even fit to carry my shoes. I've said it before, your strength is like an ant in front of me. All of you die. Chu Fengyan sneered. Even a quasi-emperor couldn't break it? Chu Fengyan was someone who had truly defeated a quasi-emperor and even killed one. As for the geniuses of the 8 great sovereign families, Chu Fengyan's aptitude wasn't inferior to those legendary geniuses. He was the first person to have such power at the Heaven's Mandate realm. Of course, it couldn't be deduced using common sense. Not good, Run. Old Ancestor Flying Blade hurriedly shouted. He could see the murderous intent in Chu Fengyan's eyes, but just as he was about to run away, the surrounding space suddenly froze. No matter how they bombarded the frozen space with their powers, they were unable to shake it in the slightest. Tianlong Change. Tianlong Change's spatial lockdown was something that not even the great sovereign, who was a quasi-emperor, could break. After Chu Fengyan used Tianlong Change, only Ouyang Li could break it. The strength of the divine saber 5 ancestors wasn't even comparable to the great sovereign. The lockdown of Tianlong Change was simply unshakable for them. Still trying to escape? Today all of you will die. Chu Fengyan shouted coldly as his battle dragon claw swept across. The body of the divine saber 5 ancestors was instantly destroyed by the battle dragon claw. Their eyes were filled with resentment, but even if they were resentful, they couldn't resist Chu Fengyan. Like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, they only left clouds of blood and empty rings in the air. Collect! Chu Fengyan pointed his finger, and all the empty rings fell into his palm. Less than 10,000 bloodstones. There were less than 10,000 bloodstones in the empty rings of the divine saber 5 ancestors, which made Chu Fengyan a little unhappy. However, when he thought about the sky-high price of a bloodstone outside, Chu Fengyan understood. If bloodstones weren't so rare, they wouldn't have been so expensive. 10,000 bloodstones were quite a lot for Chu Fengyan. As for the other things, Chu Fengyan transferred them to his empty ring. In addition to the empty ring, there was also a ball of red blood in front of Chu Fengyan. This red blood was condensed from the blood essence of the divine saber 5 ancestors. It was said that the demonic beasts of the fresh blood world loved the blood essence of martialists and demonic celestials. Since the blood snakes of the blood desert didn't come out, Chu Fengyan would use this blood essence to lure them out. Disperse. Chu Fengyan pointed his finger, and the ball of blood essence suddenly floated in the air, spreading towards the blood desert. Through his spiritual awareness, Chu Fengyan discovered that the blood snakes hidden under the blood desert were starting to lose their patience. Suddenly, a snake shadow appeared below Chu Fengyan. This snake shadow was more than 10 meters long. It was a life and death realm blood snake. Boom! Chu Fengyan didn't even look at it. He casually struck out with his palm, and the blood snake died in Chu Fengyan's palm. At the same time, a bloodstone also fell into Chu Fengyan's hand. Hiss! Hiss! Following the death of this blood snake, more and more of these noises were heard around Chu Fengyan. More and more blood snakes were scuttling out of the desert. Life and death realm blood snakes, life and death steps, and Heaven's Mandate realm blood snakes appeared one after another. These blood snakes represented bloodstones. Of course, Chu Fengyan wouldn't be polite. He condensed the battle dragon claw and swept it over. In an instant, the hundreds of blood snakes were all shattered by the battle dragon claw. At the same time, more and more blood snakes flew out. The Blood Serpent clan was a large clan that moved in groups. Since these blood serpents chose to attack Chu Fengyan, they would come out in an endless stream. Because of this, the Blood Serpent clan had always been a huge problem in the world of fresh blood. Chapter 11:19. Many ants could kill an elephant. Killing one blood snake didn't require much spiritual energy. However, even a quasi-emperor's spiritual energy would be completely depleted if they encountered tens of thousands of blood snakes. Even a quasi-emperor would choose to avoid a battle when encountering such a huge group of blood snakes. However, Chu Fengyan was an exception. As he watched more and more blood snakes rush over, Chu Fengyan didn't show any signs of nervousness. Instead, he revealed a delighted smile. Each of these blood snakes represented a bloodstone. Some of the more powerful blood snakes even had bloodstones that were purer than the bloodstones they had absorbed outside. In Chu Fengyan's opinion, these blood snakes were pure bloodstones. As for the spiritual energy they consumed, although the effects of the divine meridians were somewhat affected in the world of fresh blood, it wasn't a problem for them to recover their spiritual energy. However, they couldn't condense as many spirit stones as they could in the outside world. Boom! Chu Fengyan didn't have any scruples when he used his martial techniques. He didn't need to conserve his spiritual energy either. Every move he made killed a large number of blood snakes. At the same time, Chu Fengyan waved his other hand and absorbed the bloodstones from the blood snakes. Including the underground bloodstones, Chu Fengyan had obtained at least 10,000 bloodstones. Finally can't sit still anymore. While Chu Fengyan was wantonly slaughtering the blood snakes, a surge of blood qi suddenly erupted. This powerful figure from the blood snake clan seemed to have lost his patience and suddenly made a move. With a series of roars, these blood snakes, which were originally scattered, suddenly gathered together. In an instant, the blood qi surged. Array formation? These blood snakes actually know how to use array formations? Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He could naturally tell that these blood snakes were actually setting up an array formation. Ordinary blood demonic beasts didn't have any intelligence and could only rely on their instincts to fight. Regardless of whether it was in Lei Yan's memory or the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's information, he had never heard of the Blood Snake clan being able to use array formations. A group of demonic beasts that only knew how to fight instinctively and a group of demonic beasts that knew how to work together in formations were on a completely different level. Chu Fengyan did not take the power of these blood snakes seriously, but when they joined forces, the power of 10,000 blood snakes erupted together. Not to mention a quasi-emperor, even a true venerable emperor would have to think twice before facing it head-on. Forget it. Let's kill those blood snake kings first. Chu Fengyan looked over and saw a total of 7 huge blood snakes in the distance. It was the appearance of these 7 huge blood snakes that calmed down the messy fighting style of the other blood snakes and started to form a formation. These blood snake kings were peak immortal realm blood snakes. They were the kings of the blood snake clan. The rest of the blood snakes were under their command. They would then set up a formation to capture the leader. After killing the blood snake kings, the rest of the blood snakes without intelligence would be leaderless and useless. Break! Suddenly, Chu Fengyan waved his hand and a burst of spiritual energy erupted. It transformed into the shape of a dragon claw in the air and attacked the 7 blood snake kings behind him. The dragon claw swept across and killed all the blood snakes in front of Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan's body followed the dragon claw and attacked the heart of the blood snake clan. However, at this moment, the blood snake formation that seemed to have been broken suddenly erupted with a terrifying power. A huge amount of blood qi shot up from the gap and attacked Chu Fengyan. They know how to scheme? Chu Fengyan did not expect that not only did they know how to set up formations, but the intelligence of the blood snake clan had also reached an extremely high level. Chu Fengyan's attack on the blood snake formation seemed to be a deliberate move by these blood snake kings. Without giving Chu Fengyan any time to think, these blood snakes erupted with a terrifying power and attacked Chu Fengyan. The power of the 10,000 blood snake exploded out instantly. Blood qi filled the air, covering the entire area. This blood qi transformed into a gigantic snake tail that came crashing down. In an instant, a layer of golden dragon scales appeared on the edge of Chu Fengyan's body. Then, the divine tree around Chu Fengyan's body also condensed its power to the extreme. Invincible Battle Dragon. Behind Chu Fengyan, an illusory image of an ancient battle dragon suddenly soared into the sky and collided with the serpent tails. Boom! The shadow of the dragon and snake collided in the air and then disappeared at the same time. The power of these blood snakes is really terrifying. The great formation formed by the 10,000 blood snakes is indeed enough to contend against a quasi-emperor. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across and suddenly shifted away from the 7 blood snake kings. These blood snake kings seemed to have been ordered to attack Chu Fengmian together. This also proved that there were other experts behind these blood snake kings. Still not planning to come out? Looks like you'll only come out after I kill these 7 blood snake kings. Chu Fengmian didn't need to guess who was behind this. He knew very well that the only person who could command these 7 blood snake kings was the leader of the blood snake clan, the ruler of the blood snake clan. Sort out. Chu Fengmian didn't waste any more time. In the world of blood, no one knew Chu Fengmian's identity, so he didn't need to worry about anything. When he was outside, Chu Fengmian deliberately disguised himself as a member of the Dragon Clan, so he couldn't use his sword skills. However, in the world of blood, Chu Fengmian didn't have such concerns. The ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was suddenly unsheathed, and a terrifying dragon's might was released. At the same time, the sword moved. Dazzling sword light shot up into the sky and slashed in all directions. In an instant, a total of 9,900 sword lights were slashed out at the same time. Many blood snakes were instantly shattered into pieces. In an instant, thousands of blood snakes were slain. This was a massacre. Damn it! All of a sudden, something strange happened in the heart of the Blood Serpent clan. A terrifying blood chi burst forth and shattered the sword chi. At the same time, a gigantic blood snake suddenly appeared. This blood snake was at least 1,000 miles long. It was a colossal creature in the Blood Desert. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.